And welcome to everybody. This is the Prof Show, and some of you may be watching on Silky's channel, and I'm so glad to be co-hosting with Silky tonight. So welcome to everyone. We'll get her in here in a heartbeat, but today is April 3rd, Thursday, and we're going to be covering some retrospective of the trial of Richard Allen tonight, and I'm just so happy about that because we're halfway through it. And I'm so glad that Silky could join us to join in the adventure and make it easier. So welcome to everybody. And let me quickly say hello to everybody who's in here. And that includes Daniel Barry Sports Highlights, Samantha Springman, Teresa, Say What, Amy, Mark Ellis, Crazy Girl 1203, JoJo, Dom S. We have Sweet Dude Shibby, as well as Oleg Cat, Heather Brown. Lisa's here. Deb is here. Welcome, Deb. Look at all those peoples. Okay, Deb. Who else we have? Carol. We have Brenda Mays. Miss Pie Crust. Asha Harry. Also, we have Silky Southern Tea. All right, and we got Indiana Nan. All right, and No Name. What's up, No Name? Tracy Fleetwood. Okay, Ricardo 2. Jennifer Hoff. Miss K. All right, we got Gretchen Allen. Amy reminds everybody to hit the chat filter to all messages. You always want to do that. So please hit that chat filter to all. Jennifer Hoff's here. Welcome, Jennifer. Also, who else? Stephanie. Hey, Stephanie. And what's up, Spicy Cappy? All right. And also, we got our artist formerly known. Also, can't think of one. And we got Kay and lawyer's daughter. Um, Boy, so many people in here tonight. Welcome to everybody. Just glad to see you, Rock Crusher, Nancy Drew 101, Rhonda Holton, Abby Sellers, excuse me. And hey, everybody in the Lurker crew, feel free to come on and in, enjoy the chat, join the chat. We would love to have you in the chat. Everyone's pretty much nice in the chat, and if they're not, the 100 mods here will make sure that they're taken care of. But please join the chat and enjoy it. Um, Opposing views, uh, different opinions, and all of that, all ages, sexes, and genders, and identifications are welcome as long as you are nice to each other. That's the most important thing. So come on and be nice to each other. Enjoy the chat. That's half point of having these shows is the chat. And I've said so many times, without the chat, I wouldn't do it. So please do join the chat. And so, without further ado, let's move on. Okay. So welcome everybody. Thanks so much for coming. Welcome, Rebecca Ann. What's up, Rebecca? All right. So let's bring in Miss Silky, and we'll say hello to her and see how she's doing. Okay.
Hello, hello.
Oh, hello. Welcome,
Good to see
Silky.
y'all. Yeah, somebody asked a question. If you are in my chat, I don't know if there's a way to see Prof's chat as well. We see them both from our end, so I don't think so. Sorry. Um,
Sorry about that. You
yeah.
know, there is a way somehow to put the chat on the screen. I see
Oh yeah.
YouTubers do it, but I sure don't know how to do it.
I do, but I only know how to do it in EVMux, which is what I use. So yeah, I've done it before, but then if somebody makes a really bad comment, it is on your unless you go
Oh,
back after your live stream, it's on there forever. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't get too many trolls.
it's been fine. Like, hey, Eliana Davidson, welcome. And hey, before we even get started, someone please put Silky's channel, a link to Silky's channel in the chat so that anyone who does not yet know about Silky or know her channel, they can go and find her. Okay. And if you don't know me, if you're on Silky's, hi, I'm the prof, and come on to the prof channel. I'll be glad to see you in my chat as well. Thank you, Amy. So Amy posted the channel. That's it. Silky Southern Tea. It's easy. Okay. Yes, bro. Deb. Deb, you want to know what happened? Oh, I'd have to get my son to do it. My glasses were unfortunately destroyed. So rest in peace, glasses. No more glasses. New glasses. Thanks for noticing, Deb. All right. What's up, Laura Naran? Thanks for coming in and playing iron. And hey, I'm going to ignore the chat for a while and talk to Miss Silky. So please do enjoy the chat. Miss Silky, question: were you able to watch any of the trial of Richard Allen?
Um, I was at that time I had left the jail and I was working night shift. I was working 3 to 11. And so I would go on breaks and try to catch up with Andrea um on my ride to and from. Like I couldn't. I and then, I would try to catch Defense Diaries. Seems like there was somebody else I listened to, just like little blurbs. I just didn't have the time uh to I primarily listened to Andrea Burkhart though.
Yeah, and I might have told you that I did pretty much the same because I just could not bear the 7 or 8 hours a night. Uh, but I did skip around, and I was especially appreciative of the twitters of some of the
Yes.
mainstream news reporters from Indiana because that kept me up to date, and I would catch up sometimes with Miss Andrea Burkhart and others. So yeah, what did you think? What's your overall takeaway of how the trial went, and then what's your opinion?
I have to say, I was pretty shocked that they came back with a guilty verdict. That was the main thing because, I tried to listen to Andrea and everything that was said in court, um, and the lack of evidence. Um, I really, I could see a hung jury. I really didn't want that, but I could see that happening. Um, I was just totally shocked that they came back with a guilty verdict. And I'll tell you what, so was everybody I knew who didn't, they're not like Delphi people like I am. They literally just watched, the recaps of the trials and court TV and stuff, and they were flabbergasted. Like their flabbers were seriously gasted
That's good.
because they could not believe that they found him guilty on so little evidence, no DNA and all this other stuff. So yeah, that was my biggest takeaway. Was just pure shock.
Yeah, I mean, I felt really somewhat embarrassed, but not really, because I sat here and I was saying there's absolutely no way there's going to be a guilty verdict. And my prediction was, if anything, it was going to be a hung jury and then the possibility of not guilty. So when they came back
Mhm.
guilty, I could have hit the floor. I mean,
Yeah.
and I still don't understand how it happened.
I don't either. My biggest question is what was going through the juror's mind, because I listen to a lot of people, but I will say, Andrea did a great job of like really breaking it down. I don't know how she could take so many notes. I couldn't do it. But she gave us such a play by play that I felt like I was almost sitting in the courtroom. And that was why I'm like, what were they thinking? What were these jurors thinking? I've got no answers.
I don't know, and I was thinking, thinking of these lawyers who were doing this. So they'd have to be to court. They were already paying individuals to sit out there for 5, 6, 7 hours ahead of time. Then
Hmm.
they'd get in line at least for an hour or two, and then they would have to sit through the entire day of trial. Okay, then they come home, get a little snack break, relieve themselves, maybe change of clothes, and then do a 6 hour live stream going back
Hmm.
over the day they just had, and then get the 3 hours of sleep, or 5 hours of sleep, whatever it was, and then do it all over again. And I just
Yeah.
couldn't understand.
No,
Like,
I
yeah.
mean, those are the real heroes here. I couldn't, I don't know if I could do it. I might could have, but I certainly would not have looked as put together as Andrea did. You would have seen like hairs sticking up everywhere and like, kind of this face. I couldn't have done it. But yeah, that was just, it was so difficult. And I'll tell you what, Prof, that also shocked me about the trial is that the defense ended when they did. I really thought that they were going to open and dive deeper in some other things. Now, I realized that they couldn't do third party defense, and I realized that they were stopped on so many things, but I think I expected them to push a little harder. And when they didn't, then I got a little bit scared. And I thought maybe they are seeing something in these jurors' eyes that we can't see because you know, it's not televised. Is there something that they know, we're going to just stop here? Like, I don't know. Um,
Well, I know now. I was just like you. I look, honestly, I was really pissed off, to be most
mm,
honest with everyone. And I'm trying to make this channel more user friendly and HR friendly. But no, but I was absolutely furious when it happened. I was very angry, and I thought, what in the hell is wrong with these people? Because I figured they were only a third of the way through. I mean, in
mhm.
my opinion. But so I felt the same way. And then when yeah, me too, Miss K. I was fuming. That's what I'm trying to say. But Baldwin did an interview, okay, and this was brought up. I think it was an interview where it was him and Jennifer Auger that were in the interview together, sitting at their table, and this was brought up. and he acknowledged that yeah, basically they read the room wrong. They read the room wrong. They were feeling it out every day, feeling like they did better than they actually did. And then after so many days, they figured, yeah, we got this in the bag. And I think it was a bad call, and I mean, I think they underestimate a lot of things. But I've been sitting here regularly criticizing them in that way and in other ways. But it's not to say that I'm beating up on them. It's just that I think that they underestimated what this trial was. You know, they
Mhm.
underestimated. There was a whole lot of lack of following up with certain things, um, like regarding tips that they received and information that was handed to them. Uh, I think they just missed. They dropped the ball in lots of ways, and I think that mistakenly assuming that they were getting along or doing better with the jury than they were, it left a lot of wiggle room for the jury to maybe change their mind and come this way. And it appears to me that's what happened in deliberations as deliberations went on and on and on, and the numbers started shifting when they took votes. Um, and I think eventually everyone was just like, I think like subconsciously the jury wanted to get justice for these two dead girls. They
Yeah.
wanted justice for the two dead girls. This is the only guy they got to look at. Hours and hours and days go by, and finally, I think they just gave the ones who were holdouts just gave up for some odd reason and said, "Oh, I want to go home now. Let's just get this over with."
Yeah. That's always
Um,
possible. You know, I I feel like this is the reason that Judge Gull pushed so hard against third party defense, like flagrantly, you know, misuse of justice here. But just whatever, because that's part of your case. Like that's allowed. But if you think about it, the actual evidence that the prosecution had was so flimsy and could have been torn apart that if you had introduced anything, whether it was the Odinist, whether it was Ron Logan, whether it was anybody, like look, a lot of people have suspected that Garrett Kurtz and a laundry list of people that could have been there at the bridge. So if you had introduced any other theory that was halfway viable, I think this definitely would have, been a not guilty. But the way it was structured, with her keeping that really tight grip on not letting any evidence in that would, be exculpatory, I guess the jury just felt like they're, like you said, well, this is what we got, you
yeah,
know?
and I'm glad you brought that up. That I think you made a good point. That I want to add this too, because a lot of my critics, whenever I criticize the jury, people clap back and get mad and say that I'm not supporting Richard Allen or not supporting Delphi Truth. Listen, I agree that all of this is within the context of no. Obviously, they were not allowed to present a defense. Like that goes
Hmm.
without saying. This judge did not allow any defense whatsoever of Richard Allen. Like she kept everything out. She kept confessions of others out, which should have been in, and even the defense left out confessions of others that exist in the world and in discovery. So it's very interesting to me that you got all these other confessions. At a minimum, that should have been brought in,
Hmm.
and especially I believe Kagan Klein, because in fact, there's no doubt that the Anthony Shots account was the last to communicate with these girls, did lure them out there, and was supposed to meet with them. So the way that all of that was allowed to be kept out, I truly do believe that just justice system needs an overhaul, unlike we've ever seen in history. Like we we should not be limiting a defense of an individual to be so narrow that where we're limiting any choice of a defense that they want to present, and
Hmm.
which is exactly what happened. So yes, good point that had the defense been allowed to present any defense at all for Richard Allen, they probably would have prevailed because there was zero evidence on Richard Allen. Everything was manufactured,
Hmm.
innuendo, circumstantial, and not even rock solid. So
Right. Because
yeah.
you have to think about it as a jury, even though you have evidence that is questionable and they could hammer hard and that there wasn't this, there wasn't that. But even if your evidence is flimsy, without having a counterattack of explaining why somebody else is a better candidate, like you really don't know what to do as a juror. They've got evidence that's very sketchy, but at the same time, they weren't allowed to really hammer it in on another suspect. So you kind of have to think the jury, I hope, I mean, I have hope that they were honest people and that there was no outside influence. It is Indiana, so there's that. But yeah, the one thing I think, and I've thought about doing a show on this, the one thing like about this verdict, taking away, the pain and suffering of Richard Allen and his family, is that I think this case, in a much broader sense, for as far as society, as far as law, it has, just like Delphi blew up this tiny little crime in this tiny little town. Horrific, yes, but this happens all the time, in different places. Horrific crimes. This one went international. I feel like the way that they handled the trial is in the end going to really bite them in the rear end, because now I have people, here in Alabama where I'm at, that didn't know about Delphi, watched the trial, watched court TV, and they're like, "Are you kidding me? What is wrong with Indiana? The corruption is
Mhm.
insane." So you wanted to make it quiet, but I think what you have actually done, Indiana, is you have once again spotlighted this case. So now people from everywhere across the globe are saying what's happening in Indiana. This is not right and this has got to stop. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, this is the prosecutor's nightmare.
Yeah, and I agree. I made that point before that the whole attempt to do a Barry job with Delphi and make it all go away by railroading one guy, it's really backfired. Like
Mhm.
I believe had this judge allowed the cameras in the courtroom, the numbers on the side of frustration here would be halved, because had there been cameras in the courtroom, a lot of people would have just said, okay, well, at least we see what happened and it's okay. But by keeping the cameras out of the courtroom and with all of this obvious blocking of any defense and the lack of evidence, when you know how it is when you hide things from people, they want to look more. I remember being a kid, you
Mhm.
know uh, the older I got, as I got into 11, 12, 13 years old, I remember that that was the thing about the night before Christmas, is I knew the parents were being sneaky about something. So like we'd sneak up at 2 a.m. and we'd be like, is there anything under the tree yet? Is dad getting something out the closet? um, when you hide things from people, it makes them want to look and dig. And that's what they've accomplished, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of have that same mindset. It's like, tell me I can't.
Right.
Go ahead, tell me I can't, and watch and see how far I'm going to get. It's like a challenge. Okay, we're not going to let you see the court. Okay, so we're going to listen to every word. We're going to hammer down for those transcripts. We're going to not shut up. Like, all you have done is made people who want justice really, really angry. Like, really? Tell me I can't see the trial. Tell me I can't know what was said. Bet
Samantha
bet
says,
me. Bet me.
denial of cameras in the courtroom was the straw that broke the cover up camel's back. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I agree.
And the thing
Absolutely.
is, like, you know how Doug Carter's like, well, just move on, stop, move to another country if you don't like it. Like, bro, this type of shit, no. Guess what? you've ensured that people will not stop looking at Delphi. So guess what, Delphi? You wanted to bury this crime, make it go away, get back to Delphi as normal 10 years ago. Yeah, it ain't happening.
Mm-mm.
Okay, you've just invited more scrutiny into your town and your county and your state. Um,
Right, because if they had made it open, um, and honest and said, "Hey, we have nothing to hide," but the problem is they really couldn't do that because they have a lot to hide, in my opinion, allegedly. But yeah, if they had been more chill about the whole thing and said, "Yeah, we want justice and we want to make this transparent," we would have a harder time criticizing them.
Silky looks extra beautiful tonight, woman says.
Oh, thank
Thank you,
you.
woman. Yeah, it's effed up all the way around. And I love the glasses, Prof. Thank you. I just saw a congressional hearing about how corrupt the FBI is, and they're trying to clean it up.
Hmm.
Yeah, you think? All right. What's up, Four Pits?
Hey,
All right.
Four Pits.
What about them poor kids who in a fire they did nothing about? Yes, the Flora Four.
Hmm.
Kiani, Cariel,
Kiara,
Keone,
Kiana. Yeah.
Kiara. That, listen, it's very clear to me, and I hate to say it. I hate to be the one to say it because it's a conspiracy theory. I believe the same element involved in the Delphi murders is the same element involved in that Flora fire, and that's why it's a cover up. They're covering up both, and it's the same people who are trolling behind both crimes.
Hmm.
It's kind of fucking obvious, and a
Yeah.
bunch of the same names. And look, these towns are just within minutes of each other. Go look at a map, okay?
Hmm.
And guess what? Sandwich. I mean, get okay. So you got Kokomo here. You got Russiaville, Flora, Delphi, Lafayette. I mean, it's like it's the number of questionable people like that threaded throughout all these small towns, even on up to Rensselaer. It's amazing. It's amazing. I think that there needs to be a true cleaning out of the domestic terrorist of Indiana, but that's my opinion.
What was that last place you mentioned, Prof?
Rensselaer.
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever heard that.
Well, it's on the way to Gary, and right
Oh.
before that is Maryville. So all of these towns, so, from Gary and you step on down all the way to Lafayette and Kokomo, all of these towns, we found that a whole bunch of the trolls, a whole bunch of the criminal element, a whole bunch of domestic terrorists, they're all located and scattered, dotted through these little towns. And I'm sure Fort Pitts and others could say more about that.
Imagine that.
Yeah, Fort Pitt says New Day is banging home runs. I agree. New Day has been
Yes.
hitting it out of the park.
Yes, absolutely. Great job.
All right, you guys. So listen, I hate to cut it short with the chit chat. Lafayette caught another child predator in Tippecanoe County. Ooh.
Wow.
Um, but I guess we'll start to head towards the subject matter. Let's see what this says. The irony is that if Delphi hadn't worked so hard against Richard's defense, I would have never questioned his guilt. They pooped in their own nest. There you go, proving our
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, exactly. That's what was suspicious. Like, you know, man, when that PCA finally came out, you're like, what? What's this stuff? Like, who wrote this? A 5-year-old? Who wrote
Hey,
this?
even some of the troll farm law enforcement officers told me at the time that was the worst PCA they've ever seen in their lives. More than one, three cops, three retired
Wow.
cops.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the thing of it is it was not only poorly written, but as you find out from the Frank's motion that they never heard, most of it was lies.
Well, and
You know?
and how do I say it? Uh, he made omissions, and then he twisted things. So you take
Hmm.
5 cars, turn them into one, and then you omit the one that you can't turn into. You know, what's up, Mother of Dragons? What's up? It's a new day. What's up, Lena? Everyone who's coming in being so sweet. and nice. Thank you, Elizabeth. Um, can't think of one. David Rogers. I just love you all. Thanks for coming in here and saying nice things.
Yes, thank
Welcome,
you.
Carla Ann. All right, so look, we're going to start off. So, okay, so far, Silky, I've covered a few, probably the first 5, 6 days of trial, and now where we're starting tonight is I'm going to bring up the. All right, Kathy Shank. Let me say that. This is where we're starting tonight. Is Kathy Shank? Okay,
Good old Kathy.
and it begins down here at about 3/4 of the way. It talks about testimony of ISP data analyst regarding tips and leads, and that's Kathy Shank. Um, so Silky, just please feel free to chime in here
Okay.
whenever you feel like it. So it says the data analyst Kathy Shank organized and filed reports related to individuals, ultimately filling 5 filing cabinets. She was tasked with entering narrative summaries from these reports into the Orion database. The database organized the case by leads, each with a unique identifying number, which were then placed in a covered lead section if someone had responded. From September 2020, she started scanning all information from the paper files into the database, a process that took about 2 years. Question, why was that not done from day one, by the way?
Yes.
Were computers not existent in 2017?
Maybe they were still on dial up.
I mean, it is Carroll County after all.
Yeah,
So
right.
during scanning, here we okay. So this is where we get into the story that is just made for TV, right? During scanning of these files, of these 5 filing cabinets, she found a box with a
Dun, dun,
handwritten,
dun.
yeah, with handwritten tip numbers that predated the database's automatic assignment system. One handwritten lead sheet stated that on February 14th, Richard Allen came to the Flora Police Department and advised he was on the trails between February 13th between 1 and 3:30 p.m. Okay, let me stop there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about that one, about Flora Police Department. He might have called in. I don't remember that detail, but the whole detail of between 1 and 3:30, I think it's extremely important because when people push these narratives, they never speak with specificity. It is the law enforcement who alleges that he said between 1 and 3:30 because what
Right.
he says is between 12 and 1:30. So that's an important distinction to make, in my opinion. And remember,
Yes.
there's no proof of this because the video footage that would exist in all of Dan Doolin's interactions, for some odd reason, could not be found about this particular interaction.
And here's two things on this one statement. We were told always it was from the very beginning, Dan Doolin or somebody, there's speculation, met with Richard Allen outside of some kind of market, right? Because he was in town. Never have I heard before that he went to the Flora Police Department.
No, and this could be the AI making some confusion or something. I'm sure some of our amazing chat members knows why and why Andrea might have said something like that. But maybe he called
Maybe.
in. Maybe he called in,
Maybe
and
he
someone
did.
from there. I don't know, but the point being that no, they did rendezvous at that little grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
But what bothered me the most, and still to this day does, is that Dan Doolin alleges that he recorded all of his interactions of this sort. And when he was asked to go find this one with Richard Allen, he went look in his computer. He went look for these recordings or this recording with Richard Allen, and magically could not find it. Could not find that one recording.
Yeah, that's wow, it's just like the 70 days. The other thing that bothers me about this is a handwritten lead sheet. So if it's handwritten, I mean, did anybody carbon date it? You know what I'm saying? When was this written? Hypothetically, you
Yeah,
know?
and I have another question. Why was it marked cleared? Who
Right.
cleared it? Can we get the details on who cleared it and why they cleared it and what were the
Yeah.
details around that? I mean,
Well, here's what I think. I think the reason it was cleared is because he originally said he was gone by 1:35, something like that, according to the data. So if he said I was there from 12 to 1:30 and they didn't even arrive until like close to 1:40, you would have cleared him. But magically in the PCA, it changed to, between 1 and 3:30. So there you go. You can't I assume that's the reason he was cleared. I mean, you would think that they would, even though you have to assume if you're a law enforcement officer on a crime, I mean, I think if I were an investigator, I would assume everybody's lying. So I would have investigated him further at that time, just knowing he was out there. So it was either the time frame or something else that made him
that made
clear.
him cleared. It, like
Hmm.
you say, and even Miss Woman Doing says, I remember hearing other conservation officer cleared him,
Yeah.
interviewed him. Me too.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they
So
lost
did I.
everything. Yes, they lost all other evidence. Alleged.
Allegedly.
Let's see. They let's face it. Law enforcement and Nick created all the evidence. Well, there you go. Mic drop.
Hmm. Yep.
Okay, mic drop.
100%.
Yeah, but I mean, to mark it as cleared, and then Doolin, not only does he lose the recording, he also loses the handwritten notes that are destroyed or whatever. And so there's zero proof at all. And we have to take their word for it because they're so reliable and trustworthy.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Pillars of the community.
okay, what else we got here? I'm going to skip some of this for sake of time and expediting. Um, but the handwritten Richard out. This is another red flag to me. Okay, so there's this mystery box. Okay, so there's this mystery box in the desk drawer that she's working in. There's a mystery box with a perfectly placed Richard Allen tip sitting in there for her to find. Not suspicious at all. It's the only
No.
one that she found in the box.
Yeah, right before the election too. Wow. I mean, can you imagine?
Well, and I made a point about that before, which was, see, my opinion, it's not for the sake of winning the seat of the election. It was for the sake of maintaining or retaining control of the
Right.
investigation, which is a
Right.
whole different thing because one is just a mere political position that they're to be had everywhere. The other one is a stranglehold on this investigation, which if you lose it and you had people coming in running
Mhm.
against them saying that we were going to turn this inside out and we're going to bring in outside help, and I think it was going to be a bad deal. And so
Oh
they had
yeah.
to do what they had to do.
100%. That's what I've always said. It wasn't about the position. It was about you have to have the same people who were there originally. If you're covering up something, you cannot risk a stranger or somebody who really wants the truth to come in and, expose everything.
Crazy. Yeah, they could not have anyone coming in from the my whole deal was like this contingent could not have anyone from the outside coming in and taking over. So they
Mhm.
had to do what they had to do.
Right. Because,
Okay.
if you watch that town hall meeting, and I know I've said it on my channel a lot of times, if you watch that town hall meeting, the last two, where they were doing the debates, and you see how the citizens of Delphi react, they are not impressed with Liggett. They are all for Pinkard. They are all for, yes, come and expose it. And Liggett's up there saying, no, we're doing a good job. Basically, we got this. And the, it's almost like crickets. But then you hear Pinkard saying, no, we're going to bring in some, other agencies. We're going to bring in some other people to get this solved. And I don't know if they were standing, but the crowd goes wild with, clapping. And
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, Pinkard knocked it out of the park and said everything right. And I think what he said put fear in the bones
mhm,
of these people, and they said we got to do something.
absolutely.
Um, that's my conspiracy theory. So that's all I am is a conspiracy theorist. So, okay. So let's see what we got here. Moving on. Moving on. Let's see. Many. Okay. Here's another mic drop. Many people reported being near the trailhead on February 13th, based on cell tower data. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me say this. You know how that rumor about 3 phones in the geofencing?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 3 phones in the geofencing at the crime scene,
Mhm.
but there's dozens of phones in the geofencing and the tower dumps all around the Deer Creek area. So let's not get it twisted. Okay. Um,
I wonder what the geofencing says at the crime scene uh at 2:30 in the morning, you know?
mhm.
Or even at 5 o'clock in the morning. Nobody asked that question in trial. Well, they didn't let you really talk about geofencing anyway, but I haven't heard anybody ask that question. When the phone turned back on or whatever at 5:30, something like that, you hear the screams at 2:30. At 5:30, you have some kind of something going on with the phone around about that time. But nobody has asked the question, what was the geofence in that area at those times? That would be my question.
Well, that would be nice to be public,
Yeah.
but you see, people have been silenced,
Mhm.
and that's a whole other subject we can talk about another time. But
Yeah.
oh, but no, but perfect question. Perfect question. What about that overnight geofencing, y'all? Okay. What else we got here? And I want to see it from the 12th to the 14th.
Yes. Yes.
All right. We got I'm gonna skip all this about all of you guys know the story about Richard Allen's phone, so whatever, whatever. Okay. Then Andrea gets into what reasonable doubt is, and we'll skip all that because we could cover that later with nice graphics and all. But here we go. We got refreshing of a witness. Okay. We'll skip all of that. I'm trying to blaze through this because it's been taking so long to get through this. This is all just procedural sort of stuff. All right. Kind of skip over this. Now this is a great point here. The defense has faced legion discovery problems with things not being turned over or being delayed, absolutely matter of factly, which shows bad faith on the side of the prosecutor, who has consistently displayed this sort of these obstructive tactics of delaying and discovery, and also let's not be confused. All of these insiders who I've spoken with have said absolutely that discovery was intentionally scrambled, disorganized, disheveled, almost as if it was intentionally done to make things extremely difficult to sort through. And this is what they're saying here. And the 2 people that I've heard are behind that are Steve Mullen and Kathy Shank.
I just, yeah, I don't understand. I got to thinking about something when, as far as the police losing those 70 days as well, just talking about in general about stuff being missing. You know, they not only had the testimony of, Brad Holder and Patrick Westfall and, who really knows, who they had, but Now, to me, and I am not casting stones or saying anything, but you know, those first interviews, even with the family, there may be something that they said or recollected or whatever. If they were questioned in those first 70 days, which I'm sure they were, what is possibly lost? Because, I'm just thinking about if I'm going through a traumatic event and I've lost a family member, and then you're being, questioned by police. It Grief does a funny thing, and a lot of things get convoluted. So what did they say that maybe they didn't even know they said that was important, that they didn't realize was important? We'll never know what the family said, what those closest to the situation said in those first 70 days. And, of course, that makes it look all the more suspicious, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you do the most important work. And you know why I don't buy? I mean, there's many reasons I don't buy the whole we accidentally recorded over 70 entire
Yeah.
days. Okay, because it never happens. Okay, matter of
Hmm.
fact, period, it never happens. Just use some common sense. But in
Right.
addition, it's like that's when the most important things would be
Hmm.
happening. And are you trying to tell me that this is the cognitive dissonance for on my part? So are you trying to tell me that, I mean, because I've said before, I've watched the first 48. I probably watched every season of the first 48. And I know there's some theater in there that, because it's a TV show, but it's kind of boots on the ground TV.
Hmm.
Listen, there's many times when they would do an interrogation and it would be filmed, and then the day or week later, one of the detectives would say, "Hey, Sergeant so and so, can you go pull up the recording from a couple days ago of John Smith? I need to go
Right.
and review that footage because I'm missing something in my notes because I just talked to the other cousin and he said this, that, and the other." And then they go back and they review the footage of that interrogation to refresh themselves about something that was said. And that made for good TV too, because they would show us from the inside of the room. So you tell
Right.
me that for 70 entire days, which was really more like, wasn't it from February to August? So you're telling me from February to August, not one detective working this case ever had the need, not even once, to go back and review footage from the interview room, and having had done so, realize that it's all been lost? I mean, it just
Exactly.
doesn't logic.
Right. And another thing that has bothered me, I mean, and I just look at it from a medical perspective because, there's a lot of times we get all caught up in court, whatever. But how do you not have a list of witnesses? Like, you just, like, people just came in there all willy nilly. They walked in, they interviewed them, and nobody is there keeping a log. Because I know the officers that I work with, the deputies, even the corrections officers, they have to log every single thing that happens in a day. So you're telling me the police department and the deputies and the investigators, they don't have to have a log of, okay, from 9 to 11:30 I interviewed Patrick Westfall or Becky Patty or whomever. You know, there's no even written record. So they couldn't even go back, hypothetically, if I believed this garbage, which I do not, but if I believed it, they don't even have a log. Like, what kind of department are you running? Like, this is kindergarten. This isn't police work.
No, it's gaslight. Look, cute kitty break. Hold on, let's bring the kitty forefront.
Yeah, she's going to be hanging out probably the next few minutes. Yeah, let me.
Hey, kitty.
There's Kitty. This is Sachi. There you go. She loves to take the spotlight.
There you go. All right, that should help refresh the palate. Jeez, we got to deal with this shit. I mean, come on. Let me see. The chat is it's so much I can't keep up with. God bless you all in the chat. Thanks for being here. Yeah, you guys, your shit just don't make sense. Yeah, and like someone mentioned here, Kathy Shank, Miss Organ, she's Miss Organization, right? What the hell
Right.
happened with the Discovery lady? Um, don't you have folders for everything? Um,
Exactly.
all right, where are we here? Yeah, but like you're mentioning, so you're telling me nobody took handwritten notes so that there's a log, even, or they
Hmm.
couldn't figure out who was interviewed. Okay. Oh, the defense would find. The defense had a hard time recreating the early days of the investigation. Yeah, no joke. Investigation? You mean cover up?
Right.
Um, Mr. Baldwin referred Mullen back to a Brady hearing testimony about the importance of interviewing people early. Mullen said he could not recover the lost interviews. Yeah, and remember when he came up with the magical undated letter explaining all that happened out of the blue? Just it just appeared undated, just kind of like kind of like that safekeeping order for Richard Allen just appeared in Tobe Lesenby's hands. Never mind that it was authored by Diener, who then issued the order based on it. Um,
Right. Right.
all
Oh, insanity.
right. Mr. Bowen questioned Mullen on how an interview without audio is valuable.
Yes.
I think that's what he's good at. He's good at some snark. Okay, he's
Yeah.
good at snark.
He is very good at snark. I mean,
Uh,
yeah, I couldn't tell you what somebody said, last week, much less 6 years ago.
let's see what else we got here. I'm gonna go through a lot of this. Look, we've already. I mean, we pretty much laid that to rest. Look, it's a whole lie. Okay, Mullen, and
Hmm.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not saying Mullen is not a nice person or something like that. I mean, possibly he is, but I mean, if he is, he's got to start to wake up to the fact that he's been used as a pawn in this game.
Yeah.
Uh, Maybe he didn't do shit, but he's just going along with it. Whatever the case may be, no, it doesn't work. Um, so I'm gonna.
I don't know. Nice people, whatever. I'm just saying they're at the very least, they're incompetent. And I think that should have been and probably was observed by the FBI or other people who were helping with the investigation, right? You can't look at this and say that these people know what they're doing unless, as we both, believe it was intentional, But then you're going to ask the public to believe that? Like, you're really going to get up and say, we are so incompetent that we cannot even keep up with interviews? I mean, I guess that's their only recourse other than to say we lied, we destroyed it because we didn't want the truth.
Well, that's when you're just hitting right at the heart of it. Yeah. So either you say, we lied, we deleted that shit because it actually covered important shit and would have led to the truth of the murders,
Hmm.
or you say, oops, we're incompetent. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do we got here? We're gonna move on to the state presents evidence of the sticks on bodies. Okay, the state's theory is that the sticks were for concealment.
Yeah.
Oh my, this is not even funny. The defense may have a competing theory. Yeah, you think it? You think it? You think? The defense has requirements to satisfy to put on federal evidence. Folks with information about the investigation may not remember things or be forthcoming if it helps the defense.
Let me just interject here. When they're talking about the sticks covering, which we all know is BS. But if I'm just thinking, if I'm a criminal, okay, and they want to say it was Richard Allen and he didn't have a whole lot of time, you are not going to get sticks because it's going to take a lot of sticks. You're going to have a whole stick mound. What is the first thing that somebody would do if you want to cover up a body? There's leaves. You would start raking, shoving leaves on people if you wanted to hide them, not maybe put sticks over the big pile of leaves to try to keep them there. But that doesn't even make common sense, and I don't see how the jury bought that and how that ever flew. Oh, it was just to cover the bodies. Really? Really? When you've got big piles of leaves and debris? I mean, if I was in a hurry, that's what I'd do. Something quick.
Yeah, I mean, even who was it? Patrick Cicero. He even acknowledged. He said, "Yeah, maybe 3% or less than 3%." So we're not. Listen, think about your body. Sorry. Think about 50% of your body. Okay, let's say the bottom half, the top half, depending on who you are. 50% of your body. Now let's think about half of that. That's 25% of your body, right? Okay. Now think of half of that. Okay, what I don't know, 12% of your body. Okay. Now think of half of that. 6. And think of half of that.
Mhm.
What is it? A foot? Like your approximately your feet.
Yeah.
And that's for concealment.
Mhm.
And by the way, coincidentally, because this case is nothing but coincidences, not only was it less than 3% of the bodies, these sticks were also coincidentally arranged at definitive right angles in every place that they were found. But yeah, that's concealment and random.
Yeah. It's
Now,
it's insane.
the statement third from the bottom here, I really love it because this is something that I've been shaming the community for years. They always say, "Prof, you're mean." Well, listen, when I mean, it's intentional. Sorry if you don't like my tactics. Maybe you'll someday understand what I am saying or what I've been doing. But no, I've been constantly shaming the community, saying, "When does a community cover up the murders of 2 of its own daughters?" Okay. Uh, Listen, folks with information about the investigation may not remember things or be forthcoming if it might help the defense. Yeah, you think so? You think that this community is not being forthcoming?
I think they're scared.
There's some reason the community ain't talking. There's some reason the family ain't talking. There's some reason everybody ain't talking about this crime. Guess what?
Mhm.
They've talked for years about it privately, and they don't know who we talk to. Anyway, sorry, Silky. I get a little pissed about this angle
Yeah.
because all the information behind the scenes and people pretend that shit was never said, and there's been a whole lot of shit said. And your and I theory kind of in the same direction. It involved
Mhm.
drugs.
Mhm.
Okay, it involved drugs. It involved multiple individuals, and these girls were targeted and killed. But no, and there was a sexual element. So all of that shit together, but all of a sudden now none of that matters. But the community is who gave us all that.
Yeah, I just think of it is such a small town, and I feel like that people are afraid because if, as we both suspect, allegedly, this goes higher up, it has other implications. It has people who are part of very dangerous groups. I feel like a lot of people, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people in Delphi, I feel like they just are terrified to talk because I mean, just think about the video or the live stream we did like months ago about the Delphi body count. Especially
Mhm.
when you have information and then you see like people like Stephanie Thompson, and a bunch of others, you see people all of a sudden, you know, being unalived uh and everybody just says it's an accident. You're like, what happens? I'm not even high profile. I'm just, living here, working at the A&P or wherever you work, and what's going to happen to me? And I understand that, that is a hard thing for somebody to do. If you just, I mean, I would say you could go on the witness protection program, but there's nobody protecting you because there is nobody who has that kind of pull who could even keep you safe, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like for me, it's like you're either going to end up with a hot shot or you're going to end
Hmm.
up killed and arsoned. Either way.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right.
I
So let's
mean,
see. Let's see. Uh, I'd rather just talk to you. It's so hard to even go through this because we could talk and just have much more to say than this. But let's see. We got.
I know, and I'm so far behind on chat. I'm sorry, y'all.
I'm trying over here. Look at here. The judge consistently sustained objections against the defense. I've said that repeatedly. Remember,
Mhm.
I've said repeatedly that McClellan seems to have this epidemic of of he flailing his arms about and saying object, object, object. He freaks out.
Oh, it's
You
his
know,
animal magnetism, I'm sure. I'm sorry, I can't
yeah,
even say that with a
object,
straight
object,
face.
object.
Can't even do it.
And every
Yeah,
time he objects, 9 times out of 10, what does the judge say? Sustained. All
yeah,
yours, Nicky boy.
yeah.
All right.
It's the hair. It's the hair. It casts a spell, Prof.
It's a new day says raw. Okay, look. What else?
Oh my God.
I'm gonna skip some of this. Look, you know what's funny about this? Because it says the incel camera only recorded movement. Oh, is that in Keegan Kleinsell? Oh, all right.
Mm.
Bad joke. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna skip some of this. It's BS. Okay, so looks like here we're talking about Mullen was asked if he knew how many tips pointed to Richard Allen. Well, I don't know if he answered, but here's the question: zero. You know how we know that? Because the investigators with all of the tips said there's zero on Richard Allen. The only one on Richard Allen is the one that he called in. All
Yeah,
right.
the
Let's see.
handwritten one.
Uh, the defense requested DOC inmates as witnesses. Of course, she said, F that. You're not allowed to call Brian Chadwell. You're not allowed to call Keegan
Hmm.
Klein. You're not allowed to call Reese Davis or anybody else that might know something about this crime. Hell no.
Right.
Um, it's talking about phone calls. We'll skip through some of that because we know there's a whole lot of lies about those phone calls. Um, let me pull this down anyway because I want to say this and I want your opinion on it. I've said this so many times and I almost feel like no one has ever heard me, but I often feel like that about everything I say. Um,
Me too.
so I did a few episodes called The Confessions because I've been so disturbed by the transcript from Brian Harshman's testimony at one of these pretrial hearings. One of the few transcripts we actually have where Harshman discusses these phone calls and these confessions, and it just bothers me so much because this PR campaign has really ingrained into the public's minds that Richard Allen confessed 60 something times. Remember, the trolls repeated it endlessly. The news reporters repeated that.
Hmm.
Of course, Carroll County Comet's going to repeat it with that lady over there. 60 something confessions is what they allege. Well, if you actually go through the transcript of Brian Harshman, what he actually says is that he repeats several of the alleged confessions. By the way, they all coincidentally happen at the peak of the psychotic episode,
Right.
um, in the summer. Um, but okay, so summer, I think it's 2023. He's in the peak of psychosis. This is when he
Mhm.
gives like the 3 to 5 clear confession type statements. But Harshman listens to every single minute of every phone call for the next year. Okay.
Mhm.
So then what he does is he comes to court and he tells the judge, when they're trying to exclude all that, he tells the judge, yeah, no, see, I've listened to all his phone calls. And because I've listened to his phone calls, I've begun to understand the way that he speaks. And because I understand the way that he speaks, I can understand what he's meaning when he says things. And
Mm.
so, even though he's been abused in solitary confinement for a year, which is way longer than he ever should have been, and actually he should have never been in any of this shit, but and his life has been threatened, his family has been threatened, either all that shit, and forced medication, and it's all at the peak of the actual 3 statements he made or whatever at the peak of this psychosis. I'm able to say that uh, in all of these hours of hundreds of hours of phone calls, there's another 60 statements that would be deemed confession like or alluding to something we could equate to a confession. So basically, it's his determination, just out of pulling it out of thin air, that there's 60 other confession like statements, because he's psychic, he's intuitive, he's a genius, he's a linguistic analyst, savant, genius, with no training or experience or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So he totally pulled it out of his ass, right? That there's
Right.
60 something confessions. There's truly only 3 to 5, and they're all made at the exact same time period when he's at his absolute worst. and
Mhm.
and he's literally running from one side of the cell. There's iron doors and brick walls, so he's running from one side of the cell to the other at full speed, impacting the walls. He's having man down incidents, and this is when he's giving those confessions, by the way, for those who don't know.
Yeah, from the very beginning, and this is because I work, well, I've been a nurse forever. And, in my current position, I see a lot of psychotic breaks. I see a lot of mental illness. And that's always the way I assumed it was. Uh, because I see it all the time where you have, somebody actually in a small cell. I mean, I literally had that this week when I was at work, where somebody just said over and over and over the same thing. So if you're in a psychosis, you could be running from one side of the cell to the other saying, I did it, I unalived, Abby and Libby. I did it. Like, to me, that is more of the 60 times, and that's always the way that I took it, because there is no way that it was 60 different instances. And, I don't think that they covered enough, or to me, at least from what I heard, they didn't drive it home that he also confessed to a lot of things that were proven untrue. He didn't unalive his family. He didn't,
He
assault
didn't
his
shoot
daughter.
the girls with a gun like he said
Right.
he did. Yeah, I mean,
So,
but and
yeah.
it's funny that the Shane Meehan can claim mentally unfit. Sure, check. you know, yeah, sure.
Mhm.
You killed Greg Ferency in cold blood. Check. Um, but Richard Allen is beating himself to death like he's black and blue. He's eating his own feces, drinking his own urine, and sleeping on the floor and starving himself,
Mhm.
and all of these things. But no, he's just fine. Let's go. He's good to go. All these confessions are absolutely spot on and legit.
Yeah. Well, it's ludicrous. And also, there's not detailed notes, which I understand that she kind of just did a summary, Walla. She did a summary, and that is not sufficient, in my opinion, for court, because anytime you do, I mean, think about it. Anytime you do a summary, whether it's a book report or whatever, it is filtered through your own thoughts and your own, you know, consciousness, the way that just the way that you think about things. And she's in these true crime groups, and she has the ability to just say, oh, okay, let me do a summary. This is what he said. I mean, that is, I don't even know why that can be allowed. I don't think that you can be in her position. I don't think that you can be unbiased when you are, in different online social media groups. Uh, I think that should have been thrown out. And I don't know what the rules are. I'm not an attorney, but I'm thinking that, the defense should have, demanded that be taken out of the record. Not that the jury didn't already hear it, but you know what I'm saying? Like that's just crazy.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, and for me, honestly, I've said it before, and I know I also feel like people never hear this, but McClellan himself should have never been prosecutor on this case because he has a conflict of interest that he's related to the family of Libby
Mhm.
by marriage. So how in the hell are you allowed to prosecute this case when you have self-interest by being related by marriage into the family? I mean, of the victim.
Exactly.
Um,
I, I know when it's a small town, a lot of times it's hard to find somebody who's not related to or friends with somebody. But in a case like this, where you're talking about this kind of crime, definitely he should have recused himself, in my opinion. But he was appointed. They already knew that this was going to come eventually. And Nicky was their boy, Slick Nick. He was going to play the game, and they knew that. That's why they were willing to take him from being a defense attorney and make him the prosecutor,
he
which
plays
is,
the game. He plays the
yeah,
game. Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we need this guy on our team because he's going to do whatever. He's going to do whatever we want.
Thank you, Niobe, for the support of the channel and being a member of the channel. I just love you, Niobe. Thank you so much. That's very sweet. Okay. Walla is a whack job. Yeah, no, there's so much more with Walla too that hasn't been said yet. Listen, someone had a great point earlier, and I don't remember who said it. I put it on the screen, which was, we need to hear those confessions. You understand what I'm saying? These 63 phone calls or confessions, we deserve to hear every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Like what is the deal with this? Where we have how far away from me from trial are we now? Like, that was November. Now we're in December, January, February, March, April. And this judge is still withholding the exhibits from the trial, and they've still kept these investigators under the non-disclosure agreements, so they're not free to come out and talk either.
I'm going to highlight this.
Oh, go ahead.
Was the first thing, hi, Sleuthy, Nick did when he became prosecutor. He had a whole press conference and changed the suspect to YBG and told the world Old Bridge guy was no longer a person of interest. Absolutely. Like, he was from the get-go. He was playing that game. He was on it. They already knew. He was going to bring this one home. Whatever you say.
When you remember this, that there's always been a conflict about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, in other words, Doug Carter never stopped saying that it's both, or it's in between, or if you put them together, it's who's behind. Doug Carter's always been about it's both.
Mm-hmm.
ISP released that clarification press release that said, no. Two separate people. Old one's not a person of interest. It's only this young one. So how on earth is that even a possibility? And how does Jerry Holman claim to have no knowledge of any of that when he's embedded in there? And then how does the judge see fit that none of that even matters?
Right. And I mean, I can't remember. I can see his face and I'm having a brain cramp right now. But if you remember the interview, and this is before Young Bridge guy, where the officer is saying, "Look, here's some audio, here's a video." But he distinctly says, "We are not saying that this audio
Mm-hmm.
goes with
Mm-hmm.
this video." But all of a sudden in trial it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the golden, whatever. Here's the evidence. You can't argue with this. That big gun, that big gun. That one line is the funniest thing I have ever heard.
Tammy says these goofs live in an alternate universe. We need this to go to appellate court. Hey, here's what I do feel. I don't think that might. I don't know if it's going to solve anything or not, but I think your attorneys, these appellate attorneys, I think are a whole other caliber of attorney, and so who knows? But I mean, this whole thing is handicapped. Okay, it's handicapped by all the shit that's been deleted. Listen, there's people locally who have told us stories about things that actually happened in the early days, like evidence being lost and
Hmm.
destroyed unintentionally or possibly intentionally. The story was accidentally. Um, there's been deletions of evidence before any of this ever came to trial or before Richard Allen even was arrested. There was all this 70 days of video evidence. Who knows what other forensic evidence? We know we have evidence that wasn't even tested with as far as fibers, hairs, DNA. So when will this ever get right, or could it ever get right with all that's been destroyed and all the lies that have been told? Like I'm
Hmm.
so frustrated that a lot of the lies have become embedded in the public consciousness as facts. Like this narrative pushing has been so intense, and even the people, even the attorneys and the researchers and the diehards in this case, uh, they have such a limited scope of vision because there was a lot that was never even brought into trial, or into discovery. Like there's so much that has never been brought to the table. If we're only looking at what's on the table and we're not looking at what's in the entire room, we're lost. And this whole trial occurred on the table. So imagine all that's in the room that's been overlooked. And there's none of these attorneys looking at that. There's none of the investigators or researchers looking at that. There's very few of
Hmm.
the social media people looking at it. So I think this whole thing is handicapped, and
Well, I tell you something
mm,
else that has bothered me is, and somebody said in the chat, it just went away, but talking about the Masonic element, which I have hit hard and heavy on my channel from time to time. But here's the thing, so much evidence, so many videos and things that people remember. And this isn't the Mandela effect, okay? This is things that a lot of people remember. These interviews, these things, I've seen them just in the short time comparatively to people who have been there since day one. Like I'm going on 3 years, but still. This case rocked on way before I got here. I know of so many things that I have seen that has disappeared. And I want to tell you, there was an interview, and I honestly cannot remember who put this out, where I saw it, but I 100% know that I watched an interview where it was Becky Patty's voice, and she was talking to someone about that day. And she said in this interview that she knew that uh, Libby and Abby, but they were going to meet someone, a friend. It was just kind of like, when you've got a teenager and you don't think things like this necessarily. You think when they're going to go meet somebody, they mean another student at school. I mean, it just never, I guess, occurred to her that it could have been somebody like Anthony Schatz or AKA Kagan Klein. But in this interview, she said, yeah, they were going down there to meet a friend of theirs. Somebody, I guess, that didn't come over to the house. Maybe a new somebody. And that I have looked and looked for that interview and it is gone. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, please send a link to me. Because, and I'm not saying that she was a bad parent. That's not my point. My point is that would have definitely, put that link in there to somebody having, like we all suspect that they went there for a reason, not just because. Um, but how many things have been wiped that people have forgotten about? And maybe we remember a few lines of the interview, but we don't remember the whole thing. And there could be a treasure trove of information, but gone. So my point is, all right, it's not just, a creator here and there, or, the comet or something like that. We're talking about news stations. And it makes you think if things are scrubbed on a higher level, it can't be because some little people from little old Delphi are saying we don't want this on the air. There's got to be some pressure from somebody higher up.
There's something else going on. Yeah,
Yeah,
you good point. I'm
absolutely.
glad you mentioned it because I always forget to go on about it. But the scrubbing, you're talking about the scrubbing of the
Mm-hmm.
internet of important stuff, and so much of that has happened, and it's only the die-hard, longtime Delphi people really notice it or remember it, and there's some of it that's never been preserved. But
Mm-hmm.
luckily, some of the people, Delphi folks are really good about screenshots, screen records, and saving stuff. So a lot of people have saved stuff, but there's a lot that has been lost. But no, I'm confident that this goes to Anthony. See, this is my whole deal. The Dropbox is connected. Keegan Kline is somehow connected. Now, are we saying that Keegan Kline is the one who was using the Anthony Shots profile at the time? No. I'm saying that there is some sort of nexus there, despite what McClellan wants you to think, or Andy Baldwin, or anyone else. There is a nexus there. Now, even
Mm-hmm.
Holman admitted that, yes, the Anthony Shots account caused them to be out there that day. Okay. But he says, but it's a total coincidence that another sexual predator, Richard Allen, is the
Yeah,
one who victimized them. So what are the odds that
exactly.
these girls will be predated upon simultaneously in the same time and place by two separate sexual predators of little girls? What are the odds of that?
I don't know. It
There's
makes
I
me
don't
want to
know,
ask Grok.
astronomical.
Yeah, I want to ask Grok now and see what Grok says.
Yeah, what are the odds that two separate sexual predators would target the same two little girls at the exact same place, exact same date and time? Come on, man.
Yeah, no,
That's not a coincidence.
absolutely not.
I mean, especially when you compile the other 150 coincidences they want us to believe about the case.
Mm-hmm.
If it was a one-off, yes, maybe. Plain Iron says, Haas long. Haas did the 70 days.
Yeah, and these are the things that when somebody asks me that is not one of the Delphi community, like just somebody I know, what do you think about the Delphi? It's like all of a sudden my brain gets so overwhelmed and I just kind of stare at them. It's like I don't even know where to start with how messed up this is on so many levels and so many tangents and so many things that the general public who are screaming, I don't think he's guilty. Well, that's great, but you don't even know the half of it. You don't even know a quarter of it, and we don't know. You know, we know a lot, but we don't know the truth because nobody's telling it. So where do you even start, by saying, because the few things that I've mentioned to people, they're like, well, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that. Was that in the trial? No, it was not. But these are things that, and you're just saying he's not guilty based on the lack of evidence. And I'm telling you, there's like a whole mountain of stuff behind what we're doing and what we know at this point. It's insane. And yet they keep on trying and trolling and all that kind of stuff, and saying, "Oh, y'all are crazy. Um, he's guilty," and I'm like either you don't have, either you're being paid, you're just a troll, or you just don't have common sense, sweetheart. Now, which one is it? And bless your heart.
Listen, see this? That morning when dawn hit, did ISP and local rescue already have everything locked down with a perimeter, blah, 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 blah? Listen, Michael Capitano ran off Brad German and separately Eric Williams.
Yes.
Why are you running people off from the exact spot these girls are found?
Mm-hmm.
When magically, somehow, let's see, I've said it so many times, there's 19 hours or so. You've got about 4 hours of daylight on the 13th. Then you've got the overnight hours. Then you've got another, I don't know, 4 hours of daylight. You got 7:30 to 12:15. With all those hours of daylight, you don't find any bodies for hours and hours and hours and hours of daylight. But at the same time, you're not finding bodies. You're running off people who are coming right to that spot.
Mm-hmm. It's like
And
I said years ago. If that was my child, and you said, no, you can't go through here, I would have said, watch me, watch me, because I'm going to go anywhere I want to go. I don't care what you say. That's my child out there. I'm not stopping. So yeah, there's so much.
it's one crazy mess, says Kate. Yes, no doubt. No doubt. Listen, and I've said so many times, this case has ruined lives. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's be honest here. There's been
Yeah.
deaths. There's been divorces,
There's been
breakups.
SWATs.
There's been SWATs. There's been poverty. There's been vehicle repossessions. I mean, this entire case has ruined a number of lives.
Mm-hmm.
And you put that on top of the fact that there's an entire troll farm that's pushing. Like you said, even to the point of mainstream media doing weird things. Remember,
Mm-hmm.
when that recent, I've said it a few times, like, so what's the guy's name? Rafael Sanchez. A couple months ago, he interviewed Mike and Becky for 3 to 5 minutes. There's a small little segment. If you went to the comments of that YouTube video, it was ratioed off the charts. It was like 90% people blasting the hell out of this investigation. Comments turned off. Okay. So then I said, hey, let me go to all these others. I did a live stream where I did it in real time. So I start going to all these mainstream media. I go to WTHR, WNUR, blah, 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 all the Fox 9 or 8 or whatever the hell it is. So I start going to all the local Indiana stations that cover Delphi, and I go to the recent several, months or two of videos. And every single one of them, you've got 78, 90%, in the 80th percentile, people just angry and blasting this investigation. And they want to try to convey that people are not upset about this. If you go listen to that Lauren Hidden True Crime McClellan interview, they sit there, or Murder Sheet, or any one of them, the state shills, they sit there and act like, hey, everything's great, justice was served, everyone's happy with this. This is absolutely normal, nothing to see here. Everyone calm down, things are fine. But if you just look at the people, like, no one's buying this. And Silky, you and I, like, when we first met, we were coming from two totally different angles. It's not like we met and said, hey, we both,
Yeah.
Like, for instance, I'm one who says, I cannot declare that Richard Allen is totally innocent factually, because I don't know. How could I declare that to you if I have no proof of that? I don't know.
Right.
But here's what I can. I can say Richard Allen was never proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt at all.
Right.
There's not even a shred of evidence. I can say that. And the two can still exist together, because shouldn't the law be, and shouldn't the way things work is that law enforcement has to be honorable, honest, transparent, fair, balanced, provide facts, convince to a certain threshold. And so that's where I sit. And I'm not, I'm not trying to push any agenda in either direction. I'm looking at it saying, damn, they put this dude in prison over
Mhm.
no evidence. And
Right.
even the families and the community members, when you go to them and you say, hey, tell me, what was it about this trial that tells you that they got the right guy, that they got Richard Allen? And and even the family says, well, there wasn't really one thing, it's kind of like the totality.
Yeah. And
What does that
that
say?
doesn't sell me. That doesn't sell me. Especially had I been a juror, I would have been the one to make it hung jury, I'm sure, because I just can't. And I sat on the fence for a long time, saying, I think he's innocent, but if you've got real hard evidence, I will look at it. And I will look at it objectively. And if you can show me where he's guilty, then I'm going to get up here and say, you know what? I think he's guilty. But it just, when you look at all of the things and all of the corruption and all of the shadiness that goes around, you can't, that was, I think, the deciding factor for me was the trial. And I'm like, this is all you got? Like, really? This is all you got?
Me too. Me too.
But,
Honestly, because I was always that guy. I told Noe, I told all kind of people behind the scenes. I was like, yeah, I don't know if he's guilty or not because they could be withholding some
mm-hmm,
bombshell evidence.
mm-hmm,
And I just left that in the back of my mind. Like there might, like, I know it's not legal to do, but I never trusted McClellan. So I thought, hey, McClellan could still play some dirty trick and drop a bombshell piece of evidence
mm-hmm.
during trial that's going to just convince everyone. And nope. I mean, if they had any evidence, it would have been dropped, which tells you
Yeah,
they had nothing.
right.
And that's why they're not showing us these exhibits, because when we look at those bullet striations or markings on that casing, and we're going to see for ourselves that those marks don't match, and plus it's no way you could even have to fire around to match an unspent. Once we start seeing the actual exhibits, and once those investigators are released from the non-disclosure agreements,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have that much more to talk about. So this is done. I mean, it's, for me, I'm convinced now that they had zero evidence on Richard Allen.
Right. In the very beginning, you know, Prof, it would have been so much easier for us to, you know, our lives would have been so much easier if we had been up here saying Richard Allen's guilty. Like, there would have been a lot of things I didn't have to go through, right? But from the very beginning, but first of all, I'm not that type of person. But secondly, from the very beginning, I had big questions, even though I started out with everybody else thinking, okay, he's guilty, but then this, but then that. And I'm like, wait a second, this doesn't add up. And the more I look at the corruption and the more I look at all the dirty, shady dealings of Carroll County, I'm like, you know what? The chances that he is being railroaded are much higher based on the character of these players than he's actually guilty, you know?
Yeah,
And
that's what
so,
I told someone today. I said, look, I can't tell you about Richard Allen, but I could tell you about Carroll County and Nick McClellan and the judge.
mm-hmm, yeah. And the surrounding counties. And yeah, that's the thing. That was my big hiccup. And, this is something that like I said, the mainstream public doesn't know. And I know a lot of us and a lot of you in chat, we're always, it seems like we're talking about the same things. But my hope is that somebody is going to tune in, that people are going to tune in from somewhere else who don't know, you know? And this isn't just information that we've already heard, but that there'll be enough people talking that you're going to listen to somebody and then you're going to get hooked like we all did and say, hey, this stinks, this smells dirty. And then you have to think, well, if this happens in Indiana, when is it going to happen in Alabama? When is it going to happen? And, wherever. What if it's me? What if it's my family that gets railroaded? I mean, if you don't stop it now, then they're just going to keep doing. And we've made friends in Indiana, and I mean, have a lot of people that I just love, and then some of my people are across the pond. But I worry about my friends in Indiana, because I already know it's a hot mess of corruption. It's a hotbed. So what happens to
And I
somebody
tell
else?
you, I've just been struck by because both of us have had kind of a difficult ride here, you know. But we're survivors. Like that's the thing most people don't realize. The fact that we're still here is a huge accomplishment, because most people have been run off this case.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've been astonished by the number of people who have reached out to me and just said that, Prof, I didn't know when I came into this. I mean, I have people who said that I came into it 5 years ago, I didn't know, or 2 years ago. But then I'll have people who say, I came into it last month. But so many people contact me and say, Prof, uh, when I came into this, I thought this and that, and I believed blah, blah, blah. But the more I looked into it and I saw that they had no case and it was clearly a setup or a railroading, and that the
Mm-hmm.
things that this prosecutor and judge have done, I absolutely have been convinced that something's wrong here and blah, blah, blah. And then it's just amazing, because then I get all these people deep diving my channel, because I've been doing lots and lots and lots of lives, and I'll get comments on videos from 3 months ago or 6 months
Mm-hmm.
ago, and they'll say like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, I never knew all of this existed. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, but it's the tip of the iceberg, because even we don't know. This is the thing, the community, there's people out here there that know what happened to these girls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We look at the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that enough people are going to get upset and write to somebody, do something. I don't want to see this, appeal linger into years. Um, you know,
That's what they're planning.
oh, I know. I know. And yeah, and the world is not going to stop watching, so we're not going to stop talking. Now, I cover a lot of things on my channel. I used to be exclusively Delphi, and then, I went to other cases and I do other stuff. But Delphi is my heart. And I've heard so many people say, and I'm with y'all 100%, I will never get this emotionally involved and deep in a case that I cover as Delphi. I I just can't. I just can't do it.
I have a Papas. Thank you. I have a Papa says, we interrupt this program for a special announcement. Subscribe now and take Prof over 5,000 on the main channel.
Yay!
Please do. Listen, y'all. What am
Yeah.
I?
Whoop,
I'm
whoop, whoop.
I'm really close to 5,000 subs, and maybe what we'll do is a Friday night party for 5,000 subs tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but Silky, absolutely. I mean, this this has been difficult for everyone, and I think people don't understand, like like someone said here in the chat, people are not going away. Okay, people are not going to go away, because the problem is they made this too compelling. They made
Mm-hmm.
it too magnetic in a way with this bridge guy footage. And but speaking of, I have a Apophis who does a great job at
Mm-hmm.
questioning this footage. There's problems, okay? Now everyone's mad at me because I did not like the fact that we received a mystery drop of a video that's claimed to be the original, that appears to be tampered with. At a minimum, it doesn't show the correct GPS, okay?
Mm-hmm.
At a minimum, there appears to be another person in the footage. At a minimum, it appears to be enhanced or some sort of filter that doesn't exist on an iPhone. At another minimum, that girl appears to be wearing in the shadow. There appears to be like sweatpants on the girl, not jeans. So there's so many anomalies, but
Mm-hmm.
it's still like, I guess the main point for me that's infuriating is I do agree with everyone that yes, we deserve these exhibits, and we also deserve for the investigators to be unleashed from the non-disclosure agreements to be able to speak about the fucking case that they
Mm-hmm.
spent the past year on.
Yeah.
We deserve all the evidence, all of the exhibits, everything, and all of the intelligence from the investigators who've worked hard on this and talked to people in the course of their investigation. So, why is a tight seal being kept on this when this is all supposed to be done? It's all supposed to be
Right.
public information. And the judge, she's sitting her ass at home tonight, smiling an evil smirk
Mm-hmm.
over this, saying, I'm in control. I'll drop it when I feel like it, and it might be 6 months from now, it might be a year from now. I'm going to delay as long as humanly possible, and ain't shit any of you could do about it.
Yeah.
And this video that was dropped, that is highly contested about the authenticity of it. McClellan even had the nerve to shame the public for being interested in it because it offends the family. The family is hurt by such a thing, and just like the family is hurt by the crime scene photos, and because it shows the sticks deliberately
Mm-hmm.
arranged on the bodies. There's so many things, and they always use this family as a shield. And the people call me a family basher. I'm not a family basher. I don't care whether the family. I don't care to bash the family. Like the family is the family. Obviously, if their loved ones have been killed, they are victims as well. But there's
Well,
something wrong here. There's something wrong, and to use the family as some sort of wall to keep the secrecy, it's not acceptable. Like the family needs to understand that the public cares about homicides, and you should
mm-hmm.
give the public the resolution that it seeks, which is transparency, information, so that the public can feel a certain way, like good about what was done. And Richard
Right.
Allen is a member of the public. And so if the public doesn't feel that one of their members has been handled properly, the public's going to have a reason to question it. And this whole gaslight of, oh, don't do anything because walk on eggshells and walk over hot shards of glass for the family because don't ever upset the family in the least. But
Right.
it's infuriating because listen, you want the family to have resolve and you want this whole thing to go away, then open it all up and let the internet look at it and let the internet say, you know what, the right thing was done. And that will make
Well,
it go away.
yeah. And I mean, I try really hard on my channel. I have my personal opinions, and I have said this many times. I keep them to myself. Um, but I have tried really hard not to publicly bash the family. I do have questions. But the one thing, and it's just because I have to wonder why. Okay, my question is why? Because I'm looking at it, and I know people are different, but I'm looking at it like if it is my daughter, my daughter that this happened to, and the police are not solving this crime, and if everything is on the up and up, and I don't have anything to hide, then I'm going to be, you know what? I'm going to be everywhere. I'm going to be saying, thumbs up to every creator, anybody who's asking the hard questions, and I'm going to be answering. I'm not going to be shy. I'm going to be shouting from the rooftops everything I know to try to find out what happened to my child. And I don't understand why there's been such secrecy, you know. Um, I have often wondered whether, like everybody else in Carroll County, they're afraid to let the truth get out there as well. Like, are they in danger if they do? I have to consider all angles. Is there a reason? They've talked some, but certainly not what I would say. When you're going to go into something openly, you're going to consider everything, right? If it's my daughter and I don't know what happened, I'm going to consider all theories. Yeah, let's look into that. Okay, let's go down to that because nobody's been arrested yet. Let's look down this rabbit hole. Let's look down that one. I'm not going to, it's just weird to me, I guess. And maybe they have their reasons, but it's a little bit sus. It's a big old sus cake to me. Why it's not been there, they haven't been transparent. I don't feel that they have.
Yeah, and let me say this too, because this criticism is so often flung around to try to shut everybody up. But listen, the law enforcement did the family no favors, and
Mm-mm.
actually did no one any favors. The law enforcement could have come out and said, Brad Holder is cleared. The
Mm-hmm.
family is cleared. Keegan Klein is cleared. But for
Yeah,
7 years, they never stepped forward and said anyone is cleared. And that is an actual fact, which is why you can't blame the public for questioning, like, well, who the fuck is cleared? Because
exactly.
no one's been, even Doug doubled down on it after the uh, press conference for the arrest of Richard Allen. Richard Allen's in custody. They do the press conference, and Doug's backstage, and he says, we haven't cleared anybody.
Right.
Okay, you got Richard Allen on stage. I mean, you're on stage announcing Richard Allen's arrest. You're
Right.
asked behind stage afterwards. So, who's been cleared? Is Ron Logan cleared? We haven't cleared anybody. Oh, well, thanks, Doug. Thanks. I guess
Yeah.
we should have confidence in this arrest.
Right.
Do you believe
Right.
that he's the guy? Oh, the judge signed the probable cause affidavit for the arrest of Richard Allen. What?
Yeah. I mean, it's things like this that have kept us going that just don't make sense. I mean, I've just looked at other crime scenes or not crime scenes, but I've watched other family members in multiple crimes that are unsolved and how they behave and how they do everything within their power to bring attention. It's like, unless you are saying exactly what they don't want attention, you know? And so I have to think, if you don't know what happened, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me when I watch the reactions of other family members, different states, different people. But there just seems to be like, to me, it just seems like there is something that they are holding on to, information. Now, is it for their protection? You know, the whole family's protection from an outside force, or is it, you know, is it inside? I don't know. Um, Certainly have had a lot of questions and private conversations on what the heck. Um, but I don't think, even though I understand, yeah, you don't want the crime scene photos out. Um, I do get that because I mean, I understand the feeling about that. Okay. But as far as everything else, if I would want to know if the man that is spending 130 years in jail is the right guy. I wouldn't have a problem with having the information out. So, I mean, what family would? Like, I want to know that else is not walking the streets and somebody else's, baby
Yeah.
girl is going to be harmed.
Let's say if this is a 3-person crime, even if you believe Richard Allen did it, what about the other 2? Do you
Exactly.
not care that other people's children or daughters may be taken?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's where I come into. It's very confusing. It does not seem right. And I mean, I just know as a parent, I want all of them, whoever, whether it's 1 or 20, I want them all to pay, you know?
All right. Okay, let's pull this back up. Boy, that was good, Silky. I love this chat. The chat, you get us started and we
Yes,
won't shut up.
for
But
sure.
we feel passionately because,
Mm-hmm.
listen, you think we don't want to put this to rest? We want to put it to rest.
I do.
We're tired.
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to skip through this because it says that there's DNA problems, and we all know about that, but there's confusion. And why the confusion? Why all the confusion with DNA not being tested, being unidentifiable, being late tested, being lost, swabs being lost? Can someone please explain if DNA is such a linchpin of modern convictions and prosecutions? Can someone explain to us why the DNA was treated like toilet paper in this
Mm-hmm.
investigation? All right.
Yeah. And DNA not tested. I was just looking at. In fact, I downloaded it. It's on my phone. Somebody put it on X. Um, all of the DNA and where it was taken from that wasn't tested. Unknown this, unknown that. Well, you're telling me in the Idaho 4 case, they took 10 skin cells off of the sheath, the button of the sheath of a knife.
Amazingly.
What?
Yeah, amazing, which is
Yeah.
amazing.
But you're telling me that you can't do IgG or whatever? You can't find out who these people are? Horse feathers. Of course you
I mean,
can.
this is modernity. Are you telling me with all the forensics that exist, you can't do shit with Abby and Libby? You can't
Exactly.
even prove. You say it's Richard Allen. Prove it. Nope. Crickets.
Yeah.
Now here looks like some more triggering shit. Look, grave disability is a side effect of Haldol. Yes, that's what Monica Walla noted as Richard Allen's state during the time of these confessions. Grave disability.
Mm-hmm.
Hypersexuality because he was masturbating at some point. Delusional fears and concerns connected to psychosis. Okay, because he was under psychotic.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, I have to do it. Remember, they tried to say that he was faking. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
He was
Yeah.
faking. He was fake. Yeah. Let's see if you'll eat your own shit. Well, are
Yeah,
you willing to eat your own
exactly.
shit? Are you
Under
willing
no
to run full
circumstances.
speed into walls?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Sorry.
No, but that stuff is stuff that when I say I literally see this every day at
Oh,
work
let's
with
bring
those
you up. Yeah.
incarcerated, these are the kind of people I work with. Okay, I
Yeah.
see this every single day. The smearing of feces on the wall, making the toilet milkshakes. That's what we call them.
Silky, could you please explain what
Mhm.
your experience is so that people who don't know you will understand how you can speak about this?
Yes. I've been a nurse for literally decades. The past 3 years, I have been working at a county jail facility. We are way, way overcrowded. So it's not a prison. But we do hold prisoners for DOC because sometimes they just don't have room for them. All right. And it's not a city jail. We have the gamut. We have people who are in there for back child support, failure to appear, but we also get all of the murderers, and I have, my God, some horrific cases that you would not believe. I can't talk about them, but horrific cases because they haven't come to trial yet. But I see so many of these people who they come in and they are psychotic. All right. Especially some of the perpetrators of these hideous crimes. And, it's my job to take care of them the best, we can. A lot of people will not take their psych meds. And so this is something that I see on a daily basis. Especially when people are in ISO, whether it's just, protective custody, isolation, or medical isolation. They may have one other person in there with them, and some don't have anybody because they are too dangerous. Now, having somebody talk incessantly, saying the same thing over and over, um, on a psychotic binge, yeah, every day. Making these, we call them milkshakes when they use their toilet for, they just make a big old
Oh,
concoction. And it
Gosh,
is,
it's hard to
yeah,
hear. It's hard to hear.
it is. And it's sad because, um, actually, most of these people in this condition need to be in a psych hospital, but because of the cuts, especially in Alabama, we have like 2 or 3 psych hospitals for these kind of people, and they're always full. The waiting list could be years. Um, there's really no help for these people, so they sit in a tiny cell. Um, now they were literally caught, in the act of something. It wasn't like Richard Allen, where 6 years later somebody's like, "Oh, you're guilty." No, it was literally they were arrested at the scene of the crime. So, when I hear about the things that Dr. Walla says, that Monica Walla, is she a doctor? I don't know what she is. That she,
It's what she calls herself. No, but
yeah,
let me ask you: have
uh
you
huh.
seen the eating of the poop?
Oh yeah,
Have you ever
yeah.
seen anyone faking it do that?
No, not once, not one
How
time.
about the self harm to an extreme degree, like running full speed into a wall type of injury?
No, no. I have seen minor stuff for people who want to just get out and go to the hospital because whatever. Sometimes they're there to get a drop of substances. It's made up stuff. And so that's my job: determine what's real, what's not. Um, who needs to go out? I've seen people do small cuts on their arms and things like this, but no,
But
nothing
not
where
kick
they
the
are.
shit out yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I've seen people make messes in the toilet, but not eat it. Okay. Not eat it. Um,
Yeah,
it,
this is what I'm saying. That the fact that you remember how they've tried to do this with every single thing. Like they tried to say they found evidence at Rick's house that proves it, and they
mhm,
came up with all this list of shit that was never found and never was pertinent. Then they tried to say uh, he molested his daughter, never
mhm,
happened. Uh, he beat his wife, never happened. Uh, he blah 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 Walmart, never happened. Uh,
right.
Now there's something else I'm missing that I was going to say, but no, but it's been constant like lies.
Mhm.
So he's faking it. Oh, I know what it was. It was the sticks fell on the girls that way. The sticks on the, like literally. For those
I
who don't
know.
know, who weren't paying attention, they've literally come out and tried to lie about every single thing. And what
Right.
happens is when their lies get called out, they drop the talking point. So a lot of you don't know that it was stated the sticks fell on the girls, or Richard Allen faked it, or all these things that I've just said. These are things that they tried to pull that shit, but whenever people call them out or they realize it's too much, they walk it back. But
Yeah.
yeah, good point, Kate. Faking it so they drugged him forcibly. Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And I also want to say, you mentioned the hypersexuality. That is very, very common in somebody in psychosis. There are a lot of times that I walk up to the control room to say something to the officers, and like, they have cameras. If you're in ISO, you're on camera. And especially if they're afraid you're going to harm yourself. So somebody's watching you, 24/7. I walk up there, they've got monitors everywhere, and I'm just looking around talking. And then it's like, whoa, oh God, my eyes, I'd never wanted to see that. It is it's not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that, but it's definitely all of these things combined tells me 100% it's psychosis. It's the toilet, it's the self-harm, it's the hypersexuality, all of those things. It's the constant confessions, or just, talking, 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 talking. Like, these all combine to scream true psychosis. So nobody is going to be able to, because here's the thing. Could I, if I wanted to just fake it, could I exhibit things like this? Yes, but not for 12 or 24 hours where they're still going, not for that length of time. I mean, you're
And
going
how
to
would
get
you
tired
know?
if you're.
How would Richard Allen know? Like what you just said was so interesting to me. It's like like the Patty say, it's the totality. Yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
totality says, yes, this was a genuine psychosis.
Mm-hmm.
So how would Richard Allen know to do all those things separately to give that
Yeah.
picture? Like, he wasn't faking it. He wasn't
No.
psychosis. Okay, so with that being said, then how are these statements, especially when he said things that, like Baldwin pointed out, didn't match the crime?
Mm-hmm.
How are these things admissible into the court when they didn't matter? Like, I shoot the girls, I sexually assault the girls, I do other things that never happened at the same time that I'm doing all of these. I'm exhibiting all these symptoms you just went and listed that together paint this picture of a true psychosis. And see, I never even thought about that, the hypersexuality as being uh, one of the components. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it absolutely makes sense when you put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, basically everything to some extreme degree. So any possibility is at the extreme.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
it's
like I
something.
said, the telltale sign is the length of time. Because could I put on a good show if I was desperate to get out of jail or to do something? Yeah, but I couldn't keep it up. I mean, even when I was at work Tuesday of this week, we had a guy in there. He's in one holding cell. He was on his third day of screaming at people who aren't there and alternating that with preaching sermons. And I mean, he literally has nothing in there with him that he could harm himself or stuff in the toilet or whatever. But this kind of thing, when you're talking about all of these things combined, and Richard Allen isn't 20 years old. He can't keep this up long enough,
Hmm.
to convince somebody, oh yeah, that's psychosis. Because
Good point.
psychosis, yeah, it goes on and on.
No
Um,
stamina. That not enough
mhm,
stamina. And like Tracy's saying here, I suspect contraband substances given as well as
mhm, could
intentional
be.
induced psychosis. Well, let me say this. Remember in the letter of Robert. Okay, so here's another thing. There's this inmate named Robert Baston who wrote several letters out of concern. Now, what they've
Mhm,
all done, the narrative controllers, they all say, "Whoa, he's a child molester. Those letters don't matter." But no, no, no. Let's take the letters at face value and ignore the fact that obviously he's a convicted felon if he's in Westville. But what
mhm,
Robert Baston says is, hey, there's a problem with Rick Allen. He's undergoing psychosis, and they're smoking spice up in here
mhm.
all the time. And the secondhand
Right.
spice smoke is getting to him and making him
Mhm,
worse. So imagine let me pull it back up, what she just said. What if it wasn't even that they were injecting him with contraband, blah, 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 but it was the secondhand exposure to the spice that was being smoked in his cell block or whatever, that's blowing
mhm,
right on over next door from next door. And it's combining, imagine the spice mixture, which enough was alone to make several individuals do great harm to people. Like, there was a guy in Arizona ate someone's face off on spice,
mhm.
and there's
Yeah.
been other things, and it was even rumored that some of the huge problems in Delphi might have been related to the combination of meth and spice. Well, if you had Richard Allen was on Prozac, being forcibly injected with Haldol, and inhaling spice from being smoked next door or something, you can almost, and he's in solitary for these 8 months or so, you could start to understand, like, what the fuck?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
that all it's a compiling medical crisis.
Right. And something else that you have to take into consideration are, even if it's not something blowing through, um, and we have this problem in our jail. Like, you have the trustees getting contraband, and who's to say they didn't sprinkle something, a combination of stuff on his food, you know, that put him in that psychosis. If it was, we see in my area, we see a ton of, um, let me just say, I'm going to be careful because it's YouTube, uppers and downers, the bad ones put together, and the downers are the pain reliever. I mean, you can die like so quickly. and the upper, the is supposed to keep you alive, but it doesn't always work. But you sprinkle some of that, and I've seen people like lose their minds. We know they're on something we don't know. Of course, there's a lot of other stuff that comes in there, but yeah, you already have the odinous guards. Who is to say that somebody didn't slip him something that
Maybe,
he didn't
well,
even know?
honestly, Silky, I've wondered about that. I've wondered because you remember the photos when he was stick thin or
Yes.
paper thin.
Yeah.
He had deteriorated. He lost his. Monica Wall even made the statement of, I think she said tanked or whatever it is. His weight literally bottomed out. It floored it. He hit
Mhm.
rock bottom as far as losing body weight.
Right.
What if it's because he wasn't eating because he realized that if they had done something to his food or put something in his food the first couple times he experiences that and he's like fuck this, so he stops eating for 6 months until they go and find that he's lost 40 something pounds, and they say, hey man, something's got to happen here, you're going to die, and then so
Mhm.
he starts eating again. That could have been a reason for the eating of the feces. Maybe he's like not wanting to eat the food. He's starving for weeks on end, not eating. And he's like, well, I got this feces. He's like, we don't know. And
No.
unfortunately, he hasn't told us. But I would suspect that like if you're not eating, there's a reason.
Right.
Because
My observation is that when you are incarcerated, you gain weight, not lose weight. It occasionally happens, but not usually. Because let's face it, you're not getting nutritious meals in prison or in, our jail. Which actually I think we have a pretty good situation considering, but yeah, you're eating a lot of processed foods. There's a lot of sugary things, especially if you're getting commissary. Like I always see inmates gain weight. Um, and so you have to think with him losing weight, what if they were sprinkling an amphetamine, you know,
Mhm.
on his stuff? Well, then you don't want to eat, right? You're going to go days and not eat or eat very little. So
I
that
mean,
could be another reason for weight loss
I
and
could
induced
totally see it.
psychosis.
I could totally see it. I mean, listen, do you think it's a coincidence those guards were wearing these Odin patches and that
Mm-mm.
when Holman found out about them, they immediately got removed and then the tattoo on
Right.
the face came? Like, do you think all that's a coincidence?
No,
So,
not at all.
if they're
Not at all.
willing to try to, like, for me, it's also no coincidence that he's shackled the way he's shackled and there's a shock vest. He's paraded around like there's
Hmm.
a clear intimidation that's happening. So,
Exactly.
does it logic that they might have been messing with his food or drugging his food? Yeah, like absolutely. And for anyone to say not, you're delusional or you're just straight lying because it's obvious. Look, if they're willing to do all that other stuff, they're willing to put some shit in his food.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And now look, Robert Baston also said they were all threatening to kill him and his family. Remember that. And
Hmm.
even Richard Allen said they're going to kill my wife and
Right.
my daughter. Like, come on. And I'm
Yeah.
not making excuses that, oh, well, that means he confessed to Abby. Look, no, it's saying that, look, shit was going on. This guy's a pretrial detainee. Just think about it for a while.
Right.
He's a pre-trial detainee, and this shit's going on.
Hmm.
And on top of that, he's in solitary, like not for a week or a month or 2 months, but a long time.
Right.
It's really that I think when people say, "Oh, you guys just love a baby killer," like, look, it's human rights abuses. Is this not the United States of America?
Well, what I also find interesting is that he only had that psychosis in that one incident. Okay. So you're telling me he has endured all this other stress of trial and all the BS that goes around and this length of time, but I find it odd because people who are in psychosis generally even if you get them stabilized, they're probably not going to take their meds correctly. All right. That's just the nature of mental illness. They don't do it. And then the added stresses, I don't see how he had an episode during that time, but once it's brought to everybody's attention, ever since then, now we're going on almost 2 years, he's not had one more episode. I find that very strange.
And not one more confession. Yeah.
Right. Right. Very odd. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I'm loving it. I'm reading the chat. I mean, this is what I love about this chat. Ain't nobody's in here gaslighting or trying to like shift from the just basic, common sense narrative. Something's going down here. I mean, there's no way this many coincidences ever happen. I mean, remember when I had the Discord? I don't know if you were ever in there, but this is years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had a little section called, I don't know if I can remember what it was called. Aaron Town might remember someone in there, but in the chat. But I had this section that was all about coincidences in this case that we're supposed to believe. And we had been posting in there. Silky, we must have had 65, 75 coincidences.
Yeah.
And this is before trial and all the pretrial motions. Like, just based on the family telling the narrative and the community telling the narrative over the years, we had already had like all this list of coincidences that we were supposed to accept to believe this version of the story. And now you add on top of that all the shit that we just talked about.
Yeah.
Like,
it's insane.
Yeah, exactly. Heavy metal coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have to accept 65, 70 coincidences to make something true, it ain't true. Because you might have one.
Right.
Some people say, I don't believe in coincidence. Well, that actually means, yeah, you might have one or two. But you're never going to have 50, 60, 70 in a line that you have to believe to make this story work. Anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Let me pull this up, Silky. We on task. Okay, we're on task. Thanks for coming. It's good to talk to you.
Oh, it is you too. That's the thing is I like to talk to people who have a brain, Prof. And,
Well, your job is pretty difficult.
It's like, I've had all kind of guests on my show, but I'll just tell you, I like people who think and who can think outside of the box and, don't lock into, because I feel like neither one of us are locked 100%. If you could give me some other evidence, like, look, I don't stick with something unless that is what I believe truly, and it's good to talk to somebody who is not just, okay, this is my stance and I'm not changing it no matter what. Look, you got to be fair, and it doesn't always win you friends, but truth and justice for Libby and Abby are what we're all here about. And I am at this point 100% convinced, unless somebody has got some other evidence that Richard Allen is innocent and being railroaded. So there you go.
Well, I was telling Noe that earlier today. I was like, I don't care. I don't have any narrative to push here. It's just like, basically, I'm just like, don't fuck with me, Like, dude, I've been lied to my whole life by family, by friends, by students, by bosses. Don't fucking come and lie to me on something that I'm willingly engaged in.
Right.
I mean, come on. We're grown-ups.
Right.
All right. So let's see. I love Prof and Silky shows, says Nicole. Hey, Nicole, thank you for that. We love you.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's see. But see how that triggered, like that one statement, grave disability, that triggers me because I'm telling you, we don't have any of this. Remember, the judge made sure to exclude it because of its medical reasons. They don't want us to have the Monica Walla. Listen, if there's one thing they don't want us to have, it's the Monica Walla. Okay, so they're going to try all they can to keep that from us. But we had Yellow Jacket go and sit her ass in a courtroom when Monica Walla was doing one of the pre-trial hearings. So we were able to get some nuggets from Monica Walla.
Mm-hmm.
And and what we got from Monica Walla is he was noted as is undergoing a grave disability at the height of a psychotic episode. Even she said that, and her supervisor said it. So there's no question. This whole thing about faking, it was never an issue, other than the trolls. Like the doctor and the supervisor both claim there was a psychotic episode, and it was extended, or a lengthy extended period. He had self harm. He had hypersexuality, delusional fears and concerns. He was on suicide watch. Um, oh yeah, the babysitters. Talking about the babysitters here. No guard. No formal mental health. Right. Um, the guard noted that Rick told him he molested the daughter, which never happened. Okay, the daughter said it
Mm-hmm.
never happened, and the whole thing. Remember, these trolls also tried to say he's divorcing his wife. The wife doesn't believe him. She's leaving him. She's
Right.
just she's just here for the mother. They did this whole
Mm-hmm.
campaign with the marriage, and then they
Yeah.
reached out to Rick through the prison messaging to ask questions about his marriage. You know, which all that shit's been shut down. Don't worry. Um,
Yeah.
all right, so
You were
I'm sorry.
cracking me up with the way that you were saying Monica Walla. It
I love.
sounds like it sounds like maybe a big mess. Like they just made a Monica Walla out of it. You know, it just sounds like a new word. I might use that. You know what? This is so messed up. It's just one big Monica Walla.
It's a Wella, but they've all lied too, because there's all this conflicting information about which group she was in during this time, because she was in all the groups,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something we can't get facts for because the people who were in those groups with her are lying. Everyone's lying, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like no one wants their hands dirty in this situation.
Right.
But she was like, this was malpractice. Bottom line, you should never be engaged in what she was engaged in
Mm-hmm.
for leisure, while at the same time medicating a patient. Like there's she should have not. I don't know how they could have gone around that. If they could have found another contractor or moved her, but she should have. She did make it known to her upper supervisors. They did nothing about it. They allowed it. So you can't really say that it's only her bad. The responsibility for me technically would really point at her supervisors, who knowingly allowed her to continue to treat him when she went to them and said, I'm a Delphi fangirl. And they said, oh, it's fine.
Are you ready for a fun fact? And this is
Yeah.
100% true. Um, doctors and nurses and maybe other healthcare workers who are drawn exclusively or heavily drawn to psych rather than straight out medical, whatever, usually are drawn to it because they have a diagnosis themselves. They have some kind of mental illness. And so, therefore, they are drawn to that particular area. And this is well known
Wow.
among us, you know. Uh,
Wow.
yep.
Please, gosh, say it again. Say it again. Jesus.
Doctors, nurses, I'll just say any kind of, a professional in the healthcare field, if they are drawn to and practice in the psych area, it is usually very, very high percentage, like 90s, that they themselves have a a mental illness or disturbance, and that is why they are drawn to the field to help other people, which I mean is understandable, but you have to know. So whenever I see a psychiatrist, at work or wherever I'm at, Not, I'm not going to a psychiatrist. Let me just make that clear. Maybe I should, but I'm not. But whenever you see a professional in that area, it's always in the back of your mind, because this is something that we're told a lot in nursing school. Hey, you need to know this. I'm like, huh. I'm sitting there looking at them thinking, I wonder what you got. What kind of mental illness is running around in that head, buddy?
Boy, I'm watching this chat is just geniuses all through my chat. I just thank
Mm-hmm.
you so much for being here, everybody. Uh,
The
wow.
case of Monica Walla among us. I have a
Professionals.
office that is hilarious.
All right, let me see what else we got here. So, thank you, Andrea Burkhart, for providing your excellent coverage of the trial. Let's see what we got.
Yes.
Jesus, but no, but remember the babysitters. Okay, so who was allowed to interact with Alan? Well, some of the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
That's disturbing too, because
Yeah.
who's to say they weren't there saying, "You baby killer, I'll fucking kill you if I get my hands on you." I
Exactly.
honestly suspect that there were people sitting there, messing around with him, intimidating him. Um, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just so upset. I get every time we get to this part of this story, I literally get emotional because I get really upset about this is medical shit. This is medical shit. I get upset because this is something no one has control over. Look, have you ever
Mm-hmm.
been sick? Truly sick, where you relied on someone to care for you? All right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Let's see where I can get my bearing here.
Yeah. This is
Uh,
the same thing that upsets me about the legal, the correctional system that I work in is, again, none of us want a mentally ill person behind bars, not the officers, not the nurses, not the warden. We don't want them there because we know, yeah, we're very aware they've committed a crime, but we also know that is not where they belong. Okay. They have no
yeah.
business
Don't they
behind
belong in a
bars.
medical facility?
What?
I said, don't they belong in a medical facility?
Yes. Yes. Well, you think about even Lori Daybell. She got to go to, a mental health place for a year. She was there before trial. Um, is it gonna? Should they be exonerated from these hideous crimes? No, but most of them come into jail unmedicated and certainly unstable. So you're taking somebody, and in my opinion, they need to be mentally cleared before.
And this guy was a pre-trial detainee.
Exactly.
Like this was
Exactly.
just mind-boggling to me. This is America. Are we not the land of the free? Like there should be rules. The rule is you don't put a fucking free man in prison who's mentally ill because of the confinement. There has to be some
Hmm.
process.
You would think,
I
but
keep
this is
saying we
our
need an
justice
Allen's
system.
law, and I will never stop saying it until we get an Allen's law.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another officer statement. So this is talking about Rick's curled up in the fetal position. Okay, but of course, this ain't in a log sheet. There's a code 27 that could have been used to note fetal position. So they're trying to explain it. Uh, he's laying down. He's crying. He's doing all kind of shit. Like I said, he's running full speed into the wall, into the iron door, and his face is. See, this is some of the photos that have not been seen yet. His face is black and blue from
Mm,
impacting the iron door.
yeah.
Okay. I'm going to continue. Of course, he's got a suicide watch, so he's got inmates watching him. He's got Monica Walla every once in a while meeting with him, but of course, they've all got notepads because they're going to write down anything he says, like "I killed Abby and Libby. I will kill everyone. I will wipe out the world. I will start World War III. Is it okay to unalive myself?" He suggested they should let other of the inmates kill him. But then he says he did not want to die. Uh, You see how it's just it's all
Mhm.
he's all over the place.
Yeah, typical of what I see. When I say this is a everyday, it's very typical. Even that hitting yourself, we had a guy, he has a horrific scar. He did the same thing with, hitting his head, and before we could even restrain him, he had split his skin open. Like, I'm looking at him and I can see his skull, and I'm like, okay, well, he's got to go out and have stitches before anything else, because you know we can't leave him in here like this. um so we sent him out. Of course, they patched him up and sent him back. But again, this is he was in that psychotic state. Like, any normal person cannot run into the door or the wall or whatever. It hurts. If you
I
are
mean,
in your
maybe
right
one
mind, it
time, then you're
hurts.
gonna be yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Um
It's upsetting. I mean, and then look, it says he's complaining about ants and rats in his cell, which is a common complaint from all the inmates.
mhm.
She says he has suicidal ideation, fatalistic delusions, hopelessness. He's giving shit away. He's in turmoil, despair, hostility, obsession. He's head banging. Preoccupation was consistent with head banging. He's receiving his second Haldol injection now on May 18th. Um, I'm assuming he's getting these repetitive movements from the
Mhm.
uh, from the Haldol injections.
Mhm.
It's probably exacerbating some of his episodes. He's she's
Yeah.
re- okay. She's acknowledging that it's the best practice to retain these handwritten notes of the sessions, especially considering he's going to be facing trial. But what does she do? She shreds them. She
See,
shreds
this
them.
is that I don't understand how you keep your job when you do that in this case. I
Oh,
really
she
don't.
didn't. She didn't. See, I was going to say, because someone made that comment earlier. Her and Gallipo, they no longer work for Westville. But you know why? Because they were allowed to resign, which means they got fired the nice
Ugh,
way.
yeah.
Yeah.
I knew Gallipo wasn't, but I did not know about her.
Yeah, they got her ass out of there.
Yeah, but they'll be hired by some other
She'll
prison.
be somewhere else.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm trying to see. As I'm trying to handle the chat and the damn the notes. It's almost unachievable. But the
Yeah,
okay,
and
chat's
I'm
looking
gonna
good.
have to go back and read the
Yeah.
chat, because there's so many good comments in here, and I'm trying not to. I don't even know what did I do that. I'm My mouse isn't working. I'm trying not to, like, this is your hosting this stream. I'm trying really not to
Mhm.
do anything over here, but I'm trying to read it.
So I'm gonna skip some of this because a lot of this is just da 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 da. But this is all describing his problematic situation there. Okay, so I'm
Mm.
gonna skip some of this.
Oh, did you see this? Did you guys all hear that the judge on Karen Reed case is getting sued for constitutional rights violation? How come Gull isn't getting sued? Good question. I didn't know that. I'm vaguely following Karen Reed. It is interesting, but like I said, I'm not going to get emotionally involved in another case ever. Ever.
Well, for me, especially that one, because it's such a mind bender. But
Yes, it is, and it's the same thing. I feel like if I dive deep into Karen Reed, I'm gonna have to address and I don't want to be that person that is constantly dissing on the police, because I work with them. Okay, they're not all bad. They're not. And I'm just like, you know what? It's a hot mess. I don't know who did what, and I'm staying out of
well, that's
this
what I
one.
was going to say too. It's sort of the epidemic these days for people to just go all in. Okay, so they start
Hmm.
figuring out they don't like police, and then every case they're going to say, "Well, it's the
Yeah.
police. It's the police." Look, I'm not like that, and I never care. I'm never going to do that. And some of you activists who want to do that, fine, that's your prerogative to do that.
Mm-hmm.
My deal is I'm things that I know about, I can speak about, and things that I feel are wrong, I'll say is wrong. With Karen Reed, there clearly seems to be some wrong on the side of law enforcement in that,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not sure that there's not wrong on the side of Karen Reed. So I'm in the middle and I'm just watching.
Yeah.
I'm going to wait till it plays out and I'm watching for more information. But one thing I can say looking at this whole deal with Richard Allen, there's way less about Richard Allen. Okay, so there's nothing on Richard Allen and there's everything on the side of wrong by the state. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
willing to stand up and boldly yell
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Big difference.
Um,
Big difference.
I mean, see, I think where this leads back to for me is like you have to be able to admit that there is a thin blue line, that there
Mm-hmm.
is a fraternal order of a police, that there
Yeah.
is a Masonic club that is
Mm-hmm.
sworn to protect each other's members.
Yes.
So there are fraternal organizations or fraternities that supersede the law. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're talking about that, yeah, I'll admit that and I'll say that. And there's a lot
Yeah.
of that. Is it every single case of every single defendant? No.
No.
So there's this fine line. We have to be able to judge, like, is it this one a case of the fraternal orders superseding the law, or is this a case of justice being served? And when you see that, for me, when I'm looking at Delphi, see, my blessing, and probably you too, we know that we were in this before Richard Allen came along. I know I was.
Mm-hmm.
So Richard Allen coming along, it's not like it was the beginning of the story for me. That's why it's no big, it's easy to see through it. If I had been one of the persons who never ever knew or never ever heard or never talked to anyone local, if I was a newbie and Richard Allen was my introduction to it, I might be in a different place mentally. But by having some indication before that this was a drug related, I've never not suspected that this was drug related, this was sexually related, and that something went wrong. So I could never really get off of that because I'm convinced of that by the locals. And if you don't, those who don't believe me, listen, it's the locals who have convinced me of this. Just because I
Mm-hmm.
ain't put it on a community page or I haven't come out and talked about it doesn't mean that I'm not convinced. This is why I can sit here so boldly and say it's absolutely certain to me that what happened there was tied to the criminal underworld, which means drugs and sex. And so Richard Allen don't make sense to me as a lone wolf, just spur of the moment crime. This
Well,
is
now
not a
see,
spur of the moment.
no, I don't think so either. But I did come into this differently. I had heard about the Delphi case, had seen some kind of brief documentary on it when it was called the Snapchat murders. And so, I was aware of Bridge Guy that they were, and I was looking at the pictures. I'm like, how come they can't identify this guy? Anyway, I didn't delve deep into it until Richard Allen. And I bought into it like everybody else. Oh, they finally found Bridge Guy. Okay, yay. I was doing something else on my channel, not related. And, I don't know. I got sucked in with Richard Allen thinking that he was guilty. And the more videos I started doing, if you go back and look at my first ones on Delphi, by the second or third video, I'm like, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I can tell you're not sure. It's not making sense. And so that's when I just put everything out of my head and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go research this myself and watched tons of news articles and reports and uh, listened to both sides. And this is where I ended up. So, I came in it differently. I certainly wasn't a deep diving at all before Richard Allen. And then it just absolutely I came to the exact same conclusion that you did, Prof. And that's without talking to locals in the beginning. I'm like, okay, this looks like this because I am a true crime nerd, so I have looked at a lot of cases, and but yeah, exact same conclusion, different directions.
Well, but we experienced somewhat of the same thing because I've said
Hmm.
before how the day that that announcement was made about Richard Allen, I literally jumped out of my bed because I was like, "What?" Because I believed that they had gotten one of the guys. So
Hmm.
I jumped out of bed and I was like, "What?" And I went to work and I was hyper and I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I waited and waited and waited and then the PCA dropped and I read and I was like, "What?" And I
Yeah.
thought, it seems like they're talking about two different guys here. So who's the other guy? And then it was just a constant downhill from there.
Yeah.
It's because immediately, as time goes on, I'm like, wait up. First of all, they're describing someone else. So there's someone else. And then the more evidence that I was sure there was someone else that they're talking about in there, the
Hmm.
less on Richard Allen. And as time went by, it's just been a total, it all fell apart. And listen, let's be honest here. All of you trolls behind the scenes, you fucking know. You know that you had the same experience. You might have thought at first Richard Allen, and over time you realized it didn't make sense and it all fell apart. So why have you done what you've done?
Hmm.
Okay, I'm sorry. Question for Silky. Are there many
Um,
eh, inmates that
that's what
talk
I'm
about
thinking.
Delphi?
Inmates that talk about Delphi. No, not the inmates. Um, but some of the officers, um, my coworkers, but not until trial. Um, when I would mention, and I actually met somebody from Indiana. It's been about a year and a half ago, and actually one of my daughter's friends. And I was taking her home, and we were talking, and I said, "Hey, you're from Indiana. Do you know about the Delphi case?" Because I was already doing videos on it. And she's like, "No, what's that?" I'm like, really? Really nobody knew about it until trial. I would have to say, and they would maybe like I used to have some kind of vague idea. But by and large, no. No.
What about now? Anybody now?
Yes. As a matter of fact, when I got swatted, the police officer, the one that I would talk the most to, I asked him, do you know about the Delphi case? And it had to do with the reason that they were there. And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah," which was odd to me because nobody in the last 3 years until trial has known anything. They're like, "No, never heard of it." Um, but yeah, my coworkers, yeah, a lot of people do know now, and the majority are like, "Yeah, there's something wrong with that case. That guy's not guilty."
Your inmates?
No, my
Oh,
coworkers.
your coworkers.
Yeah,
Hey, a question on that. Do you know who was behind you getting swatted?
no,
Okay,
I don't. I
moving on.
really don't. And I know Lowlight had really wanted me to look into it. I'm like, you know what?
Well,
It
see,
doesn't
the
really
the thing
matter.
is, like these people don't understand yet what goes on with Delphi. Some people don't. I think people are starting to understand.
Hmm.
But covering true crime is a horrible, like this is the worst topic you could cover on the internet is true crime
Yeah.
because there are actual criminals who are still out there who have a reason to terrify people
Hmm.
talking about cases they may or may not be involved
Yeah.
in. Okay, so let's see.
And the one thing, and I've said this on my channel, my regular stuff, I don't understand why I was targeted really because I feel like I'm just a kitten in this. They're lions and tigers and bears that roar about stuff. And I have my opinions for sure and I don't hold back, but I'm like, you know what? Why me?
You could have
I
said something. Yeah, you could have
uh,
said something that. Struck a nerve.
I must have. Probably more than once.
Rebecca Ann knows. Look, she's in here. She's been fucked with. So, pardon the language. Silky's channel. I'm not trying to get you a
No,
strike.
that's okay.
Okay. Okay. They have to shut people down. Yeah, they do. They often terrorize. Okay. They're domestic terrorists. Let's talk about it. Okay. So let's continue. Let's see. I'm going to skip some of this. This is talking about kind of the search. I mean, we all know about this. There's that really interesting controversy about trail cameras, I'll admit, is somewhat
Mm-hmm.
intriguing to me. But we have nothing on it because everything's been deleted and hidden. And the investigators are still silenced. Okay, let's see.
Well, here's the thing. For a long time, let me just interject this real quick. For a long time, they said it was the video, but I have found multiple sources over the last probably 6 months or more that were quoted in a newspaper or news sources saying that this bridge guy came from a series of trail cam photos. So when you go back, like we talked when you were on, when I was hosting, um, they said we have video of different people who were in that courtroom saying he was a tiny little speck. So you didn't have that. Now, if it came from a trail cam because he was so far back, then there is no way that he got to the end of the bridge like that one video shows, right? It doesn't make sense. He couldn't have got there that fast. I just have, oh my gosh, I have so many
Well,
questions. But how do you tell the news, 7-8 years ago that this came from trail cans and then it gets scrubbed, then it resurfaces, but now it's a video? It's like it's just it's
yeah, then
a
then it all
crazy.
one day it was a 2 minute recording, and then it's a one
Mm-hmm.
minute recording, then it's a 43-second recording. See, this is why we need all everything. I mean, that's one thing we can all agree on. Even those people who want to fight with me, look, we can all agree we deserve everything. We need everything.
Yes.
I mean, that would kind of make everything go away, right? Okay, so let's see what else we got here.
Yeah, let's see. Somebody, I'm looking for a comment. Let me just say, hey, Christina. The reason I'm not looking for it, I've had incidences since then. Let's just say, I'll just put it this way: while they had all of my equipment, I did not talk Delphi. It was after the trial. I took a 6-week hiatus where I did not talk about Delphi. If I did, it was very brief. Um, I got my equipment back and I waited 1 week before I um, did my next show on Delphi. And I had a family member shortly thereafter get targeted for something. So the reason I don't is, I have a family to protect as well. And not everybody in my family is happy that I talk about Delphi because we're all under
Yeah. Yeah.
we're all under scrutiny. So yeah, that's why. I'm not going to stop talking, but I would not bring a lawsuit for that reason. Okay. If it's
Yeah,
just me, it's
I
one
told my
thing.
mom, I said, Mom, you realize you're on the internet. She's like, why? Never mind, Mom, it's Delphi. You don't want to know. Apparently, okay. Silky, you are a kitty. Okay. All right. So what else we got in here? We got data on Libby's phone showed that somebody plugged a wired headphone or an aux cable, not aux, into her phone at 5:45 p.m., which coincidentally is only 1 minute, I believe, or maybe it's a few minutes after the last No, wait. 5:45 p.m. The wired headphone is plugged in. 4 minutes later, at 5:49 p.m., the last phone leaves the geofencing. But then someone else allegedly uh, comes back and unplugs it at 10:32 p.m. That still bothers me. Just
Mm-hmm.
like the GPS of the bridge guy video being across town bothers me. Okay. But of course, what the state will say is, oh, it's just all data errors. It's all a mistake. It's all forensic. It's forensic mistakes that we forgot to delete. Okay. Let's see. We're
Yeah.
going to skip ahead. Let's see.
I want to see that geofencing at 2:30 and at in the morning.
In the morning, yeah. Which coincidentally, that's when the screams of horror rang out. We had 3
2:30.
witnesses to that. One
Mm-hmm.
is incarcerated, one is deceased, being murdered by Jerome Weiss, and the other one is not disclosed publicly at this time. So we got 3 witnesses, 2 still living, of that horror scream at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And I would like to see the, like you say, the geofencing in relation to that 2 a.m. And
I
why
wonder.
would Tobe Lesenby and Mr. Sterrett not respond to those horror screams?
It, there is no excuse. That is one of the key points in this case that make me the angriest. We don't have the manpower. There's somebody out here screaming, like screaming, literally bloody murder, but you don't have the resources, and there's 2 missing girls. Like, look, I don't
There's
know why he wasn't.
zero logic to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I wonder if the defense has seen the geofence for those times. I mean, we don't know. This is information. Did they even do a geofence for those times? Who knows?
I don't see anything pertinent in here. We'll skip all that. It's calling Miss Diener Miss Deer, which is interesting. um, it's good. But there's a statement I like there. Boom, 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 boom. Prolonged solitary confinement is going to drive you insane. Yeah, you think?
Yeah.
I mean, Silky, you're a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Would you think that medically that you would see a sane person be driven to insanity after, I don't know, 3, 4, 6 months of solitary confinement?
Oh, yeah. I think when I looked it up at one time, they said you can start seeing signs as early as 13 days. Now,
Let me ask you this.
okay.
Have you personally firsthand seen anyone go bazonkers, lose their mind, go from normal when they come to
Oh,
like
yeah.
wigging out?
Absolutely.
How would you
Absolutely.
describe how okay, what I know every case is going to be completely different, but how would you notice the difference in them being coming in normal to the point where, oh yeah, they lost it, solitary?
Well, usually because the officers are the ones who are, if they're in solitary, who are watching them 24/7. Um, Usually I get, called. I get a call to medical or on the radio or something like, hey, we need you to go to so and so. Um, you know, this inmate is beating their head against the window, and you know, we need you to check them out. We need to, or they just let me know that something is going on. Um, and I try to talk to them honestly. It doesn't most of the time work. If they calm down, it's only for a few minutes, just because I'm a new face that they're looking at today. But yeah, that's usually when I know. But yeah, I've seen it a lot of times, and then some people. asked to be in protective custody because they come in. This is the scenario usually. Somebody comes in, they have been a frequent flyer at the jail. And look, y'all know about recidivism. If you don't, they all come back. They just do. It's rare that somebody doesn't come back. They leave a couple months later. You hope you don't see them again, but yet I'm walking through booking. They're in the holding cell, and I'm like, what the heck are you doing back here? Constant. It's just like a merry-go-round. So, I mean, I've seen it a lot. And then when people come in, it's very common for them to ask to be put in PC because they know who's in jail already. And know they already owe a bunch of money, or somebody's got a hit out for them for something that happened on the street. So they immediately come in and tell the officers. Sometimes it's just like, I can't be put in this block. I can't be put in that block because of so-and-so. And when there is nowhere to put them, they go into protective custody. And, I've seen people sometimes for stupid reasons asked to go into PC. And I would say, for example, I had this one guy. He didn't like the block he was in. Now, he wasn't a violent criminal, okay? It was just crap he didn't pay. And he would never pay it. And so he kept coming back on failure to appear and et cetera, et cetera. And so he was talking to me one day and he said, it's just too noisy in here. I want to be in PC. And I said, no, you don't. You don't want to be in PC because you're going to be in there by yourself, maybe one other person. I'm trying to explain to him how bad it is. And he's like, no, I want to go. Well, they weren't going to put him in there. The only way he said, well, I'm just going to tell him I'm thinking about unaliving myself. And I'm like, oh my God, no, you're going to go in a turtle suit and you're going to be sleeping on the floor. Like, don't do this. But he wanted silence. So the next day I come in and they tell me, hey, this guy is in a turtle suit. He's behind the door. Great. So I would have to come, he would come out and let me check his blood sugar twice a day. And I would say it was probably in that second week that he didn't go into psychosis, but he was very mentally disturbed. We'll just put it that way. And he's like, I should have never done this. I'm like, well, I sat here and told you that, And there was a time, he wouldn't eat. He got very, I was very worried about him. Okay. He wasn't psychotic yet, but he had no history of mental illness either. But, I'm just saying it doesn't take very long. So the fact that Richard Allen was able to stay all of those months in solitary or near solitary, I think he did pretty good before, he started losing it. And again, we don't know what the circumstances were, what he was getting, what drugs he was getting, what was he being passed. We don't know.
So I see what you mean. Yeah. And for me, it just seems like a long time. I mean, let's put it this way, because I know lots of people don't have a context about the inside of a facility. You're basically talking about hell on earth, and no one would ever want to be there willingly. So thinking about, if you don't want to be there, you're a caged animal, you're hell on earth. How long do you think it would take until you lose your mind? I mean, I'd probably give myself like a week or a month. Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I think he did extraordinarily well. I really do. I think that says a lot, honestly, about his fortitude and his ability to, stay strong. And again, having a mental break in a situation like that, because it wasn't just the confinement, because the confinement in solitary alone can drive you bonkers.
That's what I'm saying.
But then you had the Odinist guards, and you had, the people saying, we don't know what, calling him a baby killer.
Baby killer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Jesse says, I did 6 years in Indiana. Now I'm a certified mental health provider
Good for
and
you.
restorative justice specialist. Been out 12 years. They do exist scarcely. Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, blessed people do rebuild their lives and are so lucky and blessed.
Hmm.
God bless you, Jessica. And there's
Yeah.
another one. Who else is this? Jenny. How were they allowed to keep him in solitary? I thought people were held in jail, not prison, before they are convicted. I must be wrong. Well, that's what we've all been screaming about. This is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. We need an Allen's Law. You can't do this to nobody.
I only know of one case, and I've said this several times because we hold really, when I tell you hideous criminals, we hold them until trial. That is not unusual. The only time that I have seen somebody go from our facility straight to DOC holding until trial is because of the nature of his crimes and the fact that it took place really just a few blocks away from the jail, okay, in a small town. And it did involve a child. And just, it was, the circumstances were horrible. It was just horrible. And because of our small town and everybody being related, everybody knows everybody, they felt that he was such a liability. I'm sure we usually transfer our people to another county, and I don't know if they didn't have any availability. I do know he went into protective custody in DOC because literally we were afraid that our own staff would unalive him or mistreat him because of the nature of the crime. Um, but is that okay? I would say no. Um, but I have seen it done one time.
All right, let's see anything else in here. I guess I need to move on. Okay, boom, boom, boom. Thank you, Silky, for like. See, the thing about your unique perspective is so valuable. Being a nurse and working in a facility, like, hey, ain't many of you on YouTube.
There ain't
This is
many of us,
called
period.
Inform. She's a specialist. Okay, let's be real here. All right.
There's
Fucking.
not a whole lot of correctional nurses, honestly, because and I love it. I do. But it is different. It's a different world.
Oh, look. So here we have. I guess someone is testifying to the veracity of memories and all, and confession. So real memories would be sensuous, associated with smell and sound. You know, like experiencing the
Hmm.
real world around you.
Right.
False memories would begin with a belief, like a
Hmm.
narrative point. Real
Yes.
memories are perceptual.
Hmm.
Okay, good. Uh, the doctor is confused somewhat uh, when it comes to talking about Mr. Allen. They're not gonna let him do it. I don't know what that means. I mean, maybe let him testify. But question was, do you believe a completely normal person can become psychotic after 12 or 6 to 12 months in solitary? Hell yeah. The doctor says, absolutely. I have seen it happen, which is just what you say.
Hmm.
Um, okay. I don't know about all this. I don't feel like this is somewhat AI based, so it's kind of, you know how it gets fragmentary.
Yeah.
But let's see. They're talking about the bullet now. And I'm going to skip all this because I think the whole discussion of a bullet is a whole gaslight. But you know what I prefer to do, since I see all of this. Okay, I'm going to get to the end of it, and then I want to say, oh yeah, this is all about the bullet and the gun. This is zero point in reading through this gaslight, but I'd much rather talk to you about it because
Yeah, I did listen to this. This is actually one of the major parts of Andrea's discussion that I was able to listen to. And I was quite surprised by some of the things that she said.
Well, why don't you start? And everyone already knows my opinion on it. I've said it so many thousands of times. This bullet stuff is, I mean, is
Yeah.
zero possibility.
The main takeaway that I had from what Andrea said is that when you have something that's so subjective, okay, there were so many parts to this, but basically, if you have something that is subjective, it's not 100%. It's not a spent bullet. It is just cycled through. Then what typically you would have if you were to present this as a real finding is you would have some peers do the same thing. Okay. No communication, independent studies. So if you were going to lead a group and say, yes, this is my findings, that you would have several other peers do the exact same test, the exact same gun, the whole 9 yards. And then you would come together and debate it until you all
Mhm.
came to a conclusion that, oh, okay, I see what you're saying here. Okay, I was wrong about that. And there is not, that's kind of like the only time that you could really say this is a thing, this is a real thing. And this is not. She just did her own independent study. She did not go follow the rules of the peer group and then let's all come and hash it out until we realize what's going on here. So I'm like, she broke not tradition. She broke the standards by not doing that. So you're just basically out here giving your opinion the way you read this, but there is no discussion and nobody saying, "Hey, you're wrong because
That's
blah blah blah."
horrifying.
Yeah,
That's horrifying. Yeah, that and which is exactly what it seems like that she's out here to give you what the state wants.
exactly,
Yeah, to her to
exactly.
say. So
So that
let
was
me
my
tell
big takeaway.
let me tell here's Prof's opinion. And I know you probably have heard me say it, Silky. There's no fucking way. Listen, I know how guns work. Why? Because I own a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Shot
Same.
thousands of rounds myself. Even considered reloading at one point, but hey, I'm a lazy person, so I prefer just spending money rather than time. However, there's one thing I can tell you that's this you could take it to the bank. This is gold. There's absolutely no way on earth ever at all. Ask any uh Second Amendment YouTuber out here, any gunner YouTuber. I could give you a list of the gunner YouTubers who you should go to. Ask them this question. Hey dude, is there ever a situation in which you would have to fire a round to match an unspent cartridge? Ask them that fucking question. Would it ever, you have extraction marks on a unspent round that's only been extracted?
Mm-hmm.
Would you ever could in your entire conception have to shoot around
Mm-hmm.
to get casing that matches the marks on the extracted round? And that's what's
Mm-hmm.
necessary. Every single one, I promise you, I'd be willing to bet my money. Every single one of those superstar YouTuber gunners would say, never,
Never.
absolutely not. It doesn't happen
Right.
because
Right.
it's
It doesn't.
too. It's like this, Prof. When you play a B flat, do you have to play a B flat to get an E flat? It's like it's two separate things.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't. For me, the only way it's possible is wishful thinking, projection, make believe, fantasy world, coincidence. Like let's say she ejected. Okay, no, they say the Richard Allen round they say is ejected. The round found at the scene they attribute to Richard Allen. Okay, it's ejected. It has some marks on it. Okay, I see that. That's a given. Now they're saying they were able to shoot however many rounds because when they ejected a bunch of shits, they didn't duplicate it with his gun.
Right.
But they're saying once they shot enough rounds, they were able to find one that kind of matched. And I had a few friends sitting in the courtroom. They said, "Prof, those marks didn't really match. Like it was interpretive." So that's why I'm saying that's one of the things I've been thirsty. I've been salivating over. Like, show me those rounds. I want to compare them myself because I can guess what I'm going to see is that the one that was fired, it probably looks kind of maybe some similar scratches to the one that was not. And that's the
Hmm.
only way. So if she had to fire 100 or 1,000 to find one that eventually made some marks that kind of almost matched, I could see that.
Right. And it's like, let me find this. It's like 5 Green Acres just said, yeah, the marks come from the barrel, not from the ejection. So then the only way you're going to get it that's why you can't. That's why everybody said even years pre-trial, like you can't compare an ejected bullet to a spent casing. You just can't
No.
do it.
And even Baldwin was not that smart. It's not even apples to oranges. It's apples to skyscrapers. Like
Yeah.
okay, I'll say this. When you get a bullet that's pristine, you look at it closely, it's already going to have scratches from the manufacturing process. Okay, then you take that bullet and it's been in a box bumping up against other bullets. It's probably going to have some bumping marks. Then you take that bullet and you put it in a magazine and you start shoving them all in. The magazine itself is going to put scratches on it.
Hmm.
Okay? Then when it comes out of the magazine, it's going to get some scratches as it comes on into the gun. Then if
Right.
you eject it, it will get ejection scratches as well. But if you fire it, it's going to get several marks. It's going to get an ejection mark by firing. It's going to get a striker pin mark by firing. It's going to get the bullet itself is going to go through a barrel, which is going to get marks. And so there's like the possibility for markings on these things. It's manifold. It's coming from all kind of directions. But just to think that this woman is claiming that you've got ejection marks on a casing that she can only replicate by firing and that she cannot eliminate any other gun from.
Hmm.
This is where it's literally like it should not even be allowed in the court of law because then it is basically meaningless. The only point of presenting it is to point it's like a subconscious programming to the
Right.
juror to
Hmm.
say, "Oh, there's suspicion about a bullet."
Right.
Yeah. So I'm
When
sorry I
it's
get
not
really
comparable.
mad about this gaslight.
And this is again when if she had done it correctly and been with her peers, they would have said that's absolute crap. It's absolute crap. You're full of it. There's no way. And she would have had, but then the defense can't bring in their expert because he can't get on a plane.
Yeah, and you know what she said? She said she said, "I've never been wrong, but some of my subordinates have."
Never.
All right. I'm sorry, Silky. That like every time we talk about this bullet, I lose it because I don't see how it's allowed. And remember, the story of this bullet, there's no photographic record of it being collected. There's also this rumor that it's found later after the
Hmm.
crime scene's released. Like there's so much weirdness about this fucking bullet.
Right.
And my question here, hey, is that bullet the same caliber, grain, manufacturer, and model, everything as Richard Allen's keepsake box? Like something's it's I think it's all just mental games, like much of this case. Like Bridge Guy, remember what McClellan said? I read it yesterday. He says, Bridge Guy, bullet, brutal murder. That's his opening statement. Fantasy, fantasy, unfortunate reality. Yeah. So you're trying to pin this reality to fantasy world narratives.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating. I tend to blow my fucking top every time I think about it. because I don't see how it's allowed. Like this is what we're not supposed to be experiencing. You know, like this
Right.
is you could be a free person, and they pull this on you. You're gone for life. And if you have a death penalty case, you might be looking at that too.
Yeah. This is I don't know. And maybe it's just me, but I'm thinking even as a juror, even not having somebody to refute this, I'm I cannot imagine sitting in a court and listening to this stuff and not having questions and saying, "Wait, this doesn't make sense." I don't know. Is it just me? Because I take it very seriously when somebody's life is on the line. You better convince me. You better really convince me that this guy is guilty.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where I am. See, that's how I can be a free Richard Allen advocate. Because
Hmm.
listen, I don't know about the front half of this. I just know about the back half of this. And if the
Right.
back half wasn't right, how can you have that guy pinned down like this?
Right. Right.
Oh my
Um,
God. This is why I say I keep coming back, and we all do keep coming back, because it's just not like, no matter what side you land on in your speculation, you still got to be whoever cannot admit that this was not right. Like, you really
wow.
got some problems if you can't admit that this was not right. Like I said, even the family won't sit there and say what convinced them that he's the guy. All they'll say is, "Well, I don't know. It's the reality of da, 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 da."
Yeah, I liked that last comment from EOA about it was ejected 200 feet from the bridge, but miraculously landed at the crime scene. Man, one of my earlier videos, I think when I still didn't know what I was talking about, was called the Magic Bullet. I'm like, and I had a whole different take on why I called it the Magic Bullet, and that really is EOA. That is like the Magic Bullet. That bullet, man.
What was your take on why it was sus?
You know what? I can't even remember. I think it was. I think it. I have to go back and watch that video. I think it was because of. Um, it may have been what because it was ejected and not fired. Probably also because I didn't. It was never mentioned in Ron Logan's PCA or
That's a
Ron Logan.
great
Yeah,
point. Yes.
and yeah, it wasn't mentioned when they searched Ron Logan, and I saw no evidence. Nobody could produce anything of a chain of custody to let me know that that bullet was actually there during the crime scene, not just somebody coming up afterwards, walking through the wood. Like there was no, it just didn't make any sense. It was just magically appeared in Richard Allen's, that his gun matched it with all these things. I think that's why I called it the magic bullet.
No, I mean, especially for me, uh, like you said, the Ron Logan. Okay, let's remove it again. All right. So Ron Logan,
They never said we're looking for a 40 caliber bullet
they're not looking
or
for
gun.
it. Okay,
Right.
they're not looking for it, which means to me they don't have it. Because you know
Exactly.
why? I don't know how many out there know this. I've said this before. Ron Logan had hundreds. Now,
Hmm.
just think about it, y'all. Hundreds of guns.
Yep.
How many of you have two guns, or 10, or even 100? Ron Logan had an arsenal.
Hmm.
You don't think they're like, the more guns you have, the more likely the odds are that you're going to have a 40 caliber handgun. Like, it's not that how many guns you need to have a 40, like a 40 caliber is a very common handgun. So for
Right.
you to have several handguns, odds are one of them's probably going to be 40 caliber. And then
Right.
odds are you're going to have a Smith or a Sig or a Glock. Okay. Now, they're not looking for that when they know that Ron Logan's house is like a basic arsenal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then on top of that, tell me again, why would they be so broad as to be looking for either? I've said this before, Silky. They're at first they're looking for either a Smith and Wesson or a Sig.
Mm-hmm.
If
And
you
in
have
her
extraction
testimony,
marks that tell you it's got to be a certain gun, why would you
right,
be looking for either a Smith or a Sig? Wouldn't you be saying, "No, we're looking for a Sig. It's a Sig."
right. And
That
that was
that
part of her testimony also at the very end when, questioned on it, she had to admit that it could have come from, there were several models it could have come from, not just a SIG. So so really, when I listen to that, I'm like, so really what you have said is a big bunch of nothing. You know, it could have come. Oh, it could have been a P226. Oh, it could have been a Smith and Wesson. It could have been. It could have been several different weapons. So, but you're up here trying to convict a man on a bullet that could have come from different guns. But you're saying, oh, this is definitely Richard Allen's, and yeah. So, yeah, that was the whole thing. Ron Logan, I'm sure, had a gun of some kind that would match that exact bullet. So did you take his, when you were looking, searching his house, did you take a box of bullets and try to see if it was, from the same lot or however,
well,
no.
let's also talk about Brad Weber, who had the identical make and model of the gun,
Yeah.
whose weapon was whose house was looked at, his weapon was looked at. The round there's there were all kind of spent cartridges found in the area of Deer Creek there.
I've heard that.
40 caliber. The reason we know, because one of my friends had lunch with an IMPD officer who collected those rounds in a Ziploc bag. All right.
I mean, I'm sure. I mean, just figure the people that live there. They're very protective of their property. There's nothing wrong with that. You have the Webbers, and you have Logan, and you have the Mears, and McCain over there. Like, there's all kind of people running around with weapons. All right. Again, nothing wrong. I have weapons. There's nothing wrong with that. However, if you're in on this piece of property and the police particularly like Sig Sauers, you're telling me that this particular bullet came from Richard Allen's gun, and but it actually wasn't picked up at the original crime, original investigation. This was not. This was like what, days later when they went
We
back?
can't even get that story straight. It's like the
Yeah.
sticks. So you got these sticks on these dead bodies, which means the killers had to have put them there.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't collect the sticks for DNA and now process. Are you
Exactly.
fucking kidding me?
Right. Right.
Can we be real? Like none of you here are stupid. You're in this chat, able to communicate. Do you honestly believe you got two dead bodies of little girls with sticks on them, which means the killers had to have been involved in touching those sticks?
Yeah.
And you don't collect the sticks, you don't swab the sticks, you don't give a shit about the sticks?
I mean, like I said, only a completely inept group of officers, and I can't even say that. I mean, because like, look, Delphi probably was not experienced being as small as they are with this kind of crime, but you also had the FBI out there,
Over 100.
and you're telling me that you're telling me that you had all of these people out there looking at this crime scene and nobody takes the sticks. I can see old Tobe and Tony, like, really. I can just say, okay, well, they just don't know what they're doing when it comes to it. all the other officers, like nobody. You're right. Nobody's picking up the sticks. Nobody's looking for DNA. Nobody's looking for
It's, I
fingerprints.
mean, Silky, it's literally mind-boggling. This is the only reason I can laugh. Is just like you cannot conceive. It's mind-boggling, dude. I mean, we've watched TV, right? You watch CSI or, like I
Yeah.
said, First 48. Like, come
Hmm.
on. I mean, cops do basic shit, right?
Right. I mean, at this point, I'm thinking I am just, it's like I slept in a Holiday Inn Express, right? I know how to, but I'm thinking I could literally handle this crime scene better than y'all did. First of all, everything is bagged and tagged and numbered, and like there's a chain of custody. Like, come on. And I just watch it on TV.
And no one lost their job for this shit.
I
Like,
know, right?
instead, people got promotions. It's Delphi.
Right. It's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And then they kick the FBI out. Hey, I know you guys are a plethora of resources. You're just a blessing. There's hundreds and thousands of you, but you know what? Get the fuck out of here.
yeah.
We don't
We're
need
just going to
FBI.
ignore your years of training and all your vast experience because we got this. Yeah, it's insanity.
Who got the
It's
donuts
insanity.
again?
Yeah. Oh, I guess we should have collected those sticks a couple weeks ago. That gummit,
Hey, Christina says Rick had a cell phone, a gun that he racked, a box cutter, while he wrangled two girls down a hill, through a creek, through the woods, got them undressed, did whatever, killed them without leaving any defensive wounds, got one of them redressed because he felt bad she was cold, and then killed her too. Somehow drained the blood out, though didn't leave no blood with her, but left a whole lot of blood with the other one. Then
Mm-hmm.
decided to put sticks. Then decided for some odd reason, instead of going through the woods down there, down that ravine like he could have, all the way out to his car, pretty much hidden in the woods, he decides, oh, I'm just going to walk down the fucking broad daylight down the road. And get seen by this lion ass Sarah Carbo who wanted to
Yeah.
argue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my.
I mean, just the one point alone of going through that water, the creeks were swollen, the water was up, it's freezing cold. Now, I am a short person, Prof. I am 5'2".
This is cute.
Richard Allen is 5'4". Not much.
That's
bigger
right.
than
That's
I am.
right.
I'm telling you, I could not cross that creek, even by myself, much less controlling two girls. The one thing that I know, because I am a country girl, all right, grew up in the sticks, in the holler, grew up in the holler. Now, what I can tell you is when the water's cold, your legs stop working. And it don't take very long. Like you literally can't walk. Like you get so cold so fast, your legs won't move. And you're telling me this little bitty hobbit of a man, and I say that because I'm a hobbit as well, like no disrespect to Richard Allen, you're telling me that we can go in deeper water, freezing water, and cross the creek, control two teenage girls. Really?
And no defensive wounds.
Yeah.
Like, come on. Like, listen, you guys who are retarded, evil fucking cops watching this who believe the state story. Listen, when would you ever have two teenagers who are both in sports with zero defensive wounds when you have a single perpetrator yielding a bladed weapon and both girls nude?
Yeah.
You won't. And you're right, Silky. See, that's another point they like to lie about is the level of the creek. Okay, because there's been lies on both sides. There's been lies saying it wasn't flooded. There's been lies saying it was too flooded. Here's the truth about the creek. The reason I know, I went and looked at the data and I combined it with the county maps. Okay. The creek was 2.5 to 3 foot above its normal level, which its normal level would place somewhat of a sandbar in between both banks at that crossing point. Normally. And normally, when you see your locals go and take pictures of that area, normally the creek's low, okay? At its normal stage, though, you got a little sandbar kind of breaking up the water, so you can go through 6 or 8 inches of water. Then you hit a dry ground. Then you go through some more, a foot of water, and then you're at the place. Well, on the day prior to this, the water had been at 3 foot higher than that, which was would have meant that that sandbar would have been 3 foot underwater. Okay, at a
Mhm.
minimum, which means the water part would have been even deeper where the water is normally. Well, that water had come down about 8 inches since its crest.
Mhm.
A normal person your height, it's going to come up to here.
Mhm.
It's frigid, and it's
Right.
flowing at a rapid pace because of the way that it's direction it's moving, um,
Mhm.
draining towards a river. So for you to get your ass in that water is going to be challenging, but to get across it, to be able to control two girls your similar size, like everyone's up to here. In other words,
Mhm.
you're all up to here in that water that's that frigid, and you're crossing to the other side, and then you're climbing up a muddy bank. But you look at Abby's clothes, no mud whatsoever. Okay, her fingers, her hands, no mud whatsoever. Abby's hand, I mean, Libby's hands, no mud whatsoever on her body. So
Mhm.
how do they do all of that? And he controlled them. No one here screams. They come out of the water. He wastes all that time sexually assaulting or whatever, getting them undressed, whatever kind of weird shit happened when he's supposed to be scared by a van from someone overlooking from an elevated position. And then he somehow takes the time to force one to get redressed, and they all maintain that cleanliness. And then he gets the hell out of there. Like, I
Mm-mm.
think that the people who actually believe the state's narrative, it's kind of the combination of wishful thinking, believing the police or the authorities, and then they never set foot on that ground.
Yeah.
Because when I combine all the things, it ain't never gonna happen. It ain't never gonna happen. Yeah, now like I have hypothesis saying, where's the phone this whole time? Because you're telling me that phone ain't getting wet.
Mhm.
No water damage to that phone going
Yeah.
through this deep water.
And for those people who haven't looked up the data on the level of the water, I'll I'll make it easy for you. Just go watch the search. Go watch that helicopter search because you see all parts of the creek. You see a lot of stuff. I'm going to tell you something. I've seen that sandbar when other creators and people who have crossed it and say it's shallow, whatever. But if you know anything about looking at things, topography, or just being able to see from a higher distance, if that sandbar was not deep in there, you would still see it from the helicopter. Like you would be able to make out the sandbar, but all you see is water. You don't see any sandbar. You don't even see the shadow of the sandbar. So
Well,
that
even
should tell
even
you.
so, Silky, that water had already. By the time that video occurs, that water's also come down another foot and a half or so, and even then, it's waist deep to those adults.
Mhm.
You know, like I don't mean to laugh. I mean, we got to laugh to keep from crying, but the just the thought of it all is just it just makes no. Miss Pie Crust, thanks. It makes no sense.
Mhm.
And then, despite the family not liking us saying it or not, listen, forensic says it. There are male hairs on those girls. There's male seminal fluid. Okay, there's male DNA. What's going on with these girls' bodies that's not Richard Allen's? I don't know. If I knew, I would tell you.
Yeah.
And then so we'll never get the autopsy photos. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. But the autopsy photos are going to show you shit too. And I'm upset about the
Yeah.
DNA testing because if you have hairs on the bodies, fibers on the bodies, and fluids on the bodies, and none of that is tested or identified, or in other words, what males in the community have they swabbed to match with that?
Right. I mean, I think that I have a problem with female Unknown female DNA.
That
Uh,
too. Jeez.
how do you have unknown female? Don't you know? I mean, if it's unknown, then I'm assuming you're saying it's not family, or is it family and you just didn't test it?
Because they were never looking for a female perpetrator. Isn't that the weirdest thing you've ever heard?
Yes.
Who says women don't commit crimes?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, look, sweet dude says women in Indiana don't do crime. Yeah, allegedly. Allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if they weren't the actual one who caused the death, I mean, that would at least tell me if there's unknown female DNA, they were present at the crime, right? Because if it were prior to the crime, and you're going to go with the state's narrative of they crossed the creek in this water, the chances of having DNA sticking to you after going through all the water and crawling up the bank and everything else, I don't think so. I just, there's just too many holes. And I think that's what frustrates me about the trial is I don't feel like the holes were really looked at. I don't think
No.
that they were, and I know they had so much evidence, they had so much stuff, given to them that didn't make sense. And it's easy for us to say because we've got all the time in the world to look at this case. But I feel like there's so many points that the defense could have brought up, and maybe they know that in hindsight, that you could have hammered down, this doesn't make sense. The state's narrative doesn't make sense. And FYI, they don't have any DNA to prove it, but here's why it doesn't make sense. You know,
Right.
it's
Or
that would have been reasonable doubt, in my opinion.
well, that's what boggles the mind. That's what boggles my mind is
Yeah.
why does reasonable doubt exist as a standard? You know, because you don't want to put the wrong guy in the electric chair or
Mm-hmm.
prison.
Exactly.
All right,
Um,
so Silky, I hate to do it. I think we've kind of completed our mission tonight.
I think we have. I've got a headache.
I just loved the discussion, and honestly, we could sit here and talk for hours. You know
Oh
that,
yeah. Yeah.
and which we should soon again.
Yeah.
And I know everyone has loved it. Hey, would Amy or someone put Silky's link in for me for my viewers who don't know her channel yet? But I know Silky, for me, like every aspect of this is so it has so much what's the word, like I don't know, there's so much doubt. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but for me, the really mind-boggling thing about what the theory of this crime, the moment of the crime is the lack of defensive wounds. Because I know there's several law enforcement officers who are farmers who talk about this case, and all of them just like hold that thin blue line, kiss the ass of the state. Listen,
Mm-hmm.
how in the world, you guys got to be honest with yourselves. How on earth do two little girls this age who are both involved in sports, or at least both able bodied, how on earth do you have two able bodied little girls attacked in this way, in this frenzy or this moment of fury? With, remember, they say Libby had 4 to 5 cuts on the throat.
Yeah.
Tell me how such a brutal attack occurs against two young girls and there's zero defensive wounds, not a scratch, not any hair pulled out, nothing that we know about, nothing the state has presented to show that one guy does this to two girls. How is it possible? Where are the human reflexes? Where are the
Mm-hmm.
natural human reflexes when that first knife hits? Where is Libby trying to protect herself from the second swipe or the third or the fourth or the fifth
Right.
swipe? Like, you guys got to be honest with yourselves. And if you are cops, you gotta start to think and stand up for what you know is right. Because I think too many have just believed because the state has a PCA and they say this guy's got to be guilty. I don't buy it because it's too inconceivable that it could happen with all of the other coincidences and doubt that comes into play. And
Mm-hmm.
that's my opinion.
Yeah. Um, I've seen, I don't think, and this is just honestly of all of the crime cases that I've looked at and somewhat studied, I don't think I have ever seen someone convicted and really nailed to the wall with so many years and all this kind of stuff with so little evidence as Richard Allen. I mean, maybe 30, 40 years ago or longer when, and I don't want to get into some hot topics, but there was a time, especially in the South and in Indiana as well, when basically one group of people could blame a crime on another group of people. Unfortunately, nobody ever looked for evidence, but those years are long past. Okay. So in our modern, let's say the last 20 years, 30 years, I haven't seen a crime case that got a conviction on like really crap evidence like this.
Flimsy. Yeah, you're right. I mean, at a time when we have the digital forensic DNA, what is it? The spectral analysis they can do of shit these days. They
Mhm.
can do all of the digital forensics with all of the
Mhm.
devices, all of the geofencing, all of the what's the other one called? The fog reveal, proprietary types. Like, there's so many things that can be done. You've got zero ness, but you got all kind of confessions around the community
You're right.
and nobody hears anything, nobody sees anything. It's broad daylight, no defensive wounds. Da 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 da. There's weird ass photos, weird ass videos, weird ass statements from the locals for years, including the family members. Someone explain it.
Yeah. Even down to the sound of the crossing of the creek. If you got three people going through a creek at one time, they're going to splash, they're going to make some noise. If there's all these people in the area, you're telling me nobody heard splashing around and thinking, my God, who is in this freezing cold water?
No screams, but there are screams. Like we said at 2 a.m. Yeah,
Yeah.
and come on, y'all.
Yep. Absolutely. Mm-mm-mm. Well,
Yes, okay, Indiana. There, Indiana, we'll talk later. I don't want to go back deep into anything. I don't want to go. But yes, Indiana, you're right, partially. Okay. Gretchen says take away the confessions and the bullet, and there's literally no evidence. What they
mm-hmm.
do have is the flimsiest shit of it. Well, but yeah, you said what
Yeah.
Silky just said. Yes, that's
Yeah.
it's the flimsiest case, paper thin, and they managed like somehow. This is what boggles the mind. Like this brings us full circle. Thank you, Gretchen. We started the show saying how we were shocked at the verdict and how everyone was blindsided because we just could not conceive how do you reach a unanimous guilty verdict with this paper thin of a
Mm-hmm.
case. And I don't know, that's the bewildering part. How do you reach a unanimous verdict with a paper thin case with no evidence?
Yeah.
And they say the bullet's evidence. Yeah, even the juror that did come out, she said, "No, we didn't even worry about that bullet." And then the confessions. I mean, they got to understand those confessions were probably, I don't know, somehow this is a case where an appeal. I truly believe like if there's ever a role for an appeal, for me, this is a case where there's actually a purpose. There's a reason that appeals exist, and this case is a prime example. And so I'm praying and hoping that this maybe brings things to light and clarifies it. But
Yeah. When it comes to the confessions, I just one more thought is, if you are looking for truth and you find a lot of information and you believe it's true, but then you know absolutely that one part of that statement is not true. He did not unalive his family. He didn't assault his daughter. So you would think that all of it, if you've got truth is truth, okay? It's all got to be true. If you've got some false in there, you got some, fake news in there, then you have to assume it's all crap. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, like for me, that's the thing that first got me was the shooting of the girls. It's like, wait, because I was waiting for the deets to come, and I'm like, we're
Hmm.
one of the guys, because he says they what came first is the alleged confession. They said, oh, that he confessed he shot one or both of the girls, and I thought, were one or both of the girls shot then? If he's the killer, he confessed, and then he says he shot one or both of the girls. Well, were they then? And then it was confirmed. No, the state never says the girls were shot.
Yeah. So
So
how do you take a confession and say, oh well, these sentences were true, but these sentences weren't in this psychotic state? It's like none of that, in my opinion, should have even been admitted. It's obviously a mishmash of nothing.
exact picking and choosing, and see that's how they did. That's a great point. I made this point with Skip Jensen on my show when he came visit one day. I said, look, they picked and chose every single aspect of this,
Hmm.
from the witnesses, because there were all kind of people there who they ignored, they put to the side, and they only picked and chose the couple witnesses that would make this narrative work. And they did the same with everything on this. They eliminated, like, the vehicles. They eliminated
Hmm.
a bunch of vehicles. They morphed them. They picked and chose to make a specific narrative that coincidentally matches a YouTuber and family member's narrative that goes back all these years. But they eliminated everything else and went with this very narrow thing. And like I said, it pointed directly at Richard Allen. And so that's my opinion in what happened to the jury, in a way, is that they were kept ignorant of everything. Okay. And they were only given this select trail, the breadcrumb trail that led right to Richard Allen. And then they were pressured at the end to say, look, you got to get justice for these girls. It's got to be done. And you're the ones to do it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the only thing I mean, makes sense. I'm just
Yeah.
reading the last of these. And thank you, everyone who's contributed to the chat here. I'm trying to look at the last ones before we get the hell out of here. I think that's good. So I don't know if Silky, if you see one, or if there's anything you like to say, but I think we just about caught up to everyone.
Yeah. There's so much, but yeah, with maybe go back, and if you see something, we can have another discussion another night on, you know.
This is a good one to leave out. There, she was all excited talking about the juror, about getting leave to leave a daily list for Pepsi or whatever she wanted for a deputy. And yeah, she wanted the deputy. She wanted the barbecue. No, we're beating up the juror. But my whole question has been, where's the other damn jurors? Where's
Yeah.
the other damn jurors? You know what? Was there 14 or 16 of them
I think there
in
was
totality? We
14.
got one to come out, and she kind of said weird stuff. So where's the other jurors? Like, we're not going to beat you up. I mean, we kind of like rag on her because she was weird about what's his name, Jason.
Yeah. Think.
But we do want the other jurors to step forward and just enlighten the world as to your take on this case, because we in the public are all baffled, truly.
Yeah.
And also, maybe you've learned something as a juror that gets you angry because you don't understand how this was all kept from you.
Right. I think that was my takeaway. My immediate thought, when the verdict came down and everything, I thought, I wonder how many of these jurors are going to come out and then listen. Are they going to listen to the opposing views, or to YouTubers, or to even just, court TV? Are they going to realize that they convicted a man, because you would have a lot of guilt when somebody puts it in perspective, the outside looking in, because so many people were like, what the heck? Maybe that's why some of them aren't talking, is like, I can't believe that, I don't even want to come out there and say I was a part of this. Maybe some people don't care, but I think that's a heavy load as a
Mm-hmm.
juror, to realize that they kept so much information from you. That would be heartbreaking, and I can't imagine, uh, yeah, and I think you're right, Christina. Picking jurors that can be easily influenced. Yeah, like, look, people are trained, attorneys and stuff. They're trained to be able to look at people and read them and know how, if they're going to be able to be influenced. There is a lot of psychology to that. It's wrong, but it happens.
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, I do feel, Silky, that they're going to have a certain level of interest coming out. If they weren't before,
Hmm.
coming out of this, they're going to look at social media and come across information. I'm sure they would be upset, because I know if it was me, and if all kind of stuff was kept from me, and
Hmm.
someone's life is on the line like that, and I go ahead and I do what I do, and then I learn what was kept, I would be upset. Like, wait, how is this just to do this to a jury?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Thank you, Jenny, for becoming a member. And listen, I want to thank everyone who was participating in the chat tonight. It was so wonderful. And also
Yes.
to Niobe, Kate Eleanor, Nicole Watt, Jennifer Hoff, Rebecca Ann, Janice, and Jenny for becoming a member. And if any of you contributed uh, to the channel, but please do, if you don't already, subscribe to Silky's channel. I know Amy or someone has put. It was Amy, I believe. There's a link to Silky's channel. Please go subscribe to her. And if you're on Silky's channel, please come subscribe to the Prof. We love you.
Yes. Yeah.
And
There's no telling
Silky,
what you'll find on my channel. I've got a ton of Delphi videos if you want to, or if you're interested. But I also, it's anybody's guess. Yesterday I talked about a news article, Prof. Just a funny ending. Okay, there is a news article out of New Jersey. This is what I was talking about, where a police chief. Okay, we're not talking about some random wacko. The chief of police got fired because he was defecating by people's desks, and he was putting Viagra and Adderall into the coffee pot, shaving on people's desks and into their food. And like, look, he is a 26-year-old veteran. His dad and his granddad, both police officers, and this wacko is out here. Like, what are you gonna do? You're just sitting there minding your own business, and the chief of police comes by and drops a dookie right next to
it's
you. Like,
true. I
what
can
the
vouch for this. I read the article. Like, what in the world?
insane?
People are bazonkers. Listen, this whole thin blue line, we're above the law, we're greater. Listen, this dude was shitting in his office and putting
Yes,
shit in the coffee pot and all the lunches and shit for the
yes,
police department.
yeah,
Did y'all not see that? True story. Go
yeah.
Google it.
Yep, I covered that one yesterday. So there you go. You never know what you're gonna find on my channel.
Yeah. No, true story. Whack a
Yeah,
doo doo. Whack a doo doo. Good job,
yeah.
Hooser. Yeah. So, hey, Silky, I love you. Thank you so
Love you
much for
too.
coming.
All right, y'all have a great night.
That
I'm
was
gonna be
fun,
out.
Silky.
All right, thank you for having me.
All right. Silky out. Oh my God, I love it. What a fucking trip. You guys, it's true. It's true. This dude, chief of police, a new dude, and he goes berserker, and he fucks all the shit up. But anyway, go subscribe to Silky. If you're on Silky's, come subscribe to mine. We love you guys. Tomorrow is Friday, allegedly. Unless you're on the replay, then I can't promise you a thing. But tomorrow should be Friday for most of us, at least those of us who are here as we film. And hopefully, I'll see you all tomorrow on Friday. It should be fun. We'll do a little Friday show. Who knows what we have in store? I think we're going to take a break from the reading of this trial coverage. Uh, we'll have one more episode on it, okay? So we'll be completing. Apparently, I have 32 pages left to cover. So on the next stream, we'll plow through that. But I was so glad to have Silky tonight because I needed a break. This has been too hard getting through on my own. So I asked Silky to please come join us. I'm so glad she did. Uh, Boy, she just brings the light to the room. And so thank you, Silky, for coming. And thank you, everyone who is here. You guys are the most awesome. Serious. Serious. You're the most awesome. I certainly appreciate having you here. And boy, it was fun. It was fun. And I thank God we got to laugh a little bit. Jeez, man, this case is a headache. Uh, Amy says, thank you, Prophet Silky. Big thank you, Miss Silky, and her chat. That's right. Silky's chat was in our chat tonight. Wasn't that fun? All right. So fun chat. Good everyone. So I love you guys. I brought in some relief. Is that the way you say it? Yeah. It's a relief for me to get to actually laugh for once because, man, I've been having aneurysms lately on these shows. But we don't want that. Anyway, God bless everyone. I need to meet Silky. She's right up the road from me. Sound as country as her. Really? All right. You guys go have coffee or something. Shit. Just don't do like a police chief or whatever in there. But God bless everybody. Again, hit the like on your damn way out of here, please. Also, hey, be aware. I have two channels, the Prof and the Prof True Crime. So subscribe to both channels. I'd appreciate it. I'm trying to get my numbers equal. So I love to balance out the ratio there on the two channels. So if you're not subscribed to the backup channel, go ahead and do that. All right. Talk about a city boss. Yeah, he's worse than the ones I've had, and I've had some pretty bad ones. Yeah, yeah. Good job, y'all. Good night, Indiana Nan. Let me say hello to everybody. Okay. Good night, Miss K, Abby Brown, Amy, Jenny, Diana, Shibby. Who else is up in here? Deb. All right, Tracy Fleetwood, Plain Iron, Yolanda, Sandra, Carla Ann, Mino Dino, me. Shit. Who else we got in here? Oleg Cat was here. Tracy Fleetwood, Gretchen Allen, Jenny, other Jenny, Goose's Gammy. Did you change your name? Five Green Acres, Texas Suzer. All kind of y'all. Okay, KC Jakes. I know that Jake Brooks was here earlier. Elizabeth Jones was here. Shoot, there was so many people here earlier who seem to have blazed on out of here. So if you were here earlier, thanks for being here earlier. Appreciate that. All right. So Rhonda Holton, what's up? Thank you for being here. Thanks for chiming in. Oh, there, Rebecca Ann. I almost forgot you. Rebecca Ann was here. Everyone was here. Rick Snay. Shout out to Rick Snay, my buddy. He's not here, but I know he's out there somewhere. And so big shout out to Rick Snay and Noe Amos and Julie Melvin and Christine Erica and all my buds. Okay. God bless you all. A good night. Hug your kids, hug your wife. Represent those Flora 4 and the Delphi and Evansdale girls and everyone else you care about. God bless you all. Hug your kids, hug your wife. Thanks so much for being over here in the chat. I do appreciate you. And hopefully no one will be butthurt enough to try to copyright strike the channel, do whatever you want because you hate the prof. Okay, so good night and God bless everyone. I love you. And now I'm going to hug my kid. And I'll see y'all guys later. And Anyway, tomorrow night it is.